I just want to do that. I just want to do that.
Oh, so much of the best stuff we can't air.
I want to cuckold some people is what I want to do.
Yeah, you know.
Raise my seed, it will hate you.
That sounds like something that should be put in like the next incarnation of the 300 movies or in an episode of Game of Thrones, but it's just coming out of your mouth right now.
I told you I would get the throne. It may not be me, but it's my child. Like one of those the Gladiator, but they use the word cuck in it. I can't believe you have cuckolded me.
Oh, goodness. You know what makes it good? Is that as funny as all of that was, we can't air most of it until the point where it gets really funny and we're laughing, and it's all out of context and people have to guess what it is. It's cool and it's humid in the Mountain State. It's also episode 11 of Apex Live. We told you we would be more prolific. Moving forward, we're going to be regular. Digital Metamucil, I believe we said.
Digital.
I'm Brad, that's Steve.
Hello.
We've got things to do. It's the end of summer, the 126ers, our intro music. There's a lot of stuff going on that we need to talk about. Even today, it's been busy. Justin Novaria is going to join us on the program a little later in the second half. He's going to be on the spot, the first ever in our on the spot segment. We'll cover his boxing career. Probably won't do any word association with him because the concept scares me of doing that with him. But, we'll ask him some off the wall question that he has to answer. He has no idea what I'm going to ask him. He asked me if he needed to do any prep, and I said, there are a couple of boxing things we'll talk about, but
he's weird enough not to have to prep.
I'm not telling him what any of the questions are, and well, we'll find out how that goes. Steve, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How about you?
Well, things are feeling pretty good, I think, for the most part. But you ever have that ominous feeling where something's wrong and you don't know what it is, or maybe that it's not wrong, but maybe something's coming?
For about a week now.
Yeah. And it seems weird. I don't think it's anything related to the show, so I don't care that much because the show really among my top 3 priorities at this point. So we're just going to keep that rolling. But I don't know.
I give it top 3. I have
something just seems up.
I'll give it top 4. God, family here.
Right.
All that.
I notice work didn't make the list.
No, it never does.
I think
because it's slavery and I'm wasting my life.
I think you've had just about enough.
I'm wasting my life. I'm talking about any job. I'm wasting my life.
Yeah, but specifically, you'd had enough of that one yesterday, I think.
Yeah, I get tired. People call me. Don't call me. On Saturday, I don't care about your washing machine. I'm sorry.
Okay, so as much of an 80s music fan as you are, the Thompson Twins song "Call Me" not coming up yesterday.
No, I love
you'd had it. Don't call me today.
I love the Thompson Twins. I think are they all like? They're definitely not twins.
I don't think so.
And I don't know how many of them are female and how many of them are male.
I think it's 2 dudes.
2 dudes, but one looks like a chick.
Yeah,
no, because the bass player might be a chick.
I don't remember.
The one with like the hat with the long blonde hair, weird looking style.
This is going to sound super insulting, but they weren't quite important enough for me to remember in detail. Like Tears for Fears, they were weird. They were relevant.
They were like a spin-off of Tears. It was kind of like the genre type.
It was that new wave pop era that was really good. Man, I love 80s. We always bring it back to 80s music at some point because it's just so wonderful. I love it.
It is. It actually, it's reversal. It seems like that should be our music now because it seems progressive. Now everything's just a unfleshed turd.
Well, 80s music, 80s television, those kinds of things. We were old enough to remember a lot of it, or at least by the time we got to 5, 6, 7 years old, it was still recent enough to be relevant, so we could sort of pick up on it, even if it was a little after the fact. It makes me, looking back, it makes me wish that I would have been in those teenage years.
Oh, it would be awesome.
12, 13, 14, around 82 or 83, and going into high school and the first year or two of college by the end of that decade. Whereas what we had to deal with was the 90s, which was really just
It was weird.
It was angry.
Yeah.
That was an angry decade.
Third Eye Blind and stuff like that.
The music was angry. What they called alternative, and I thought, alternative to what?
What's alternative?
And just as a whole, I thought the 80s was a more fun decade.
Or just naming of
a
genre.
little more carefree. It was a better time, and that would have been fun to grow up in. But the 90s weren't too bad, especially when you compare it to the utter garbage that we have to live with now. So there's that.
That's why I like watching Donnie Darko, because it kind of like, man.
Is that the one with the rabbit?
Yeah.
Thought so.
That's a Jake Gylenhaal movie. It's actually pretty good.
Man, that's weird.
Bubble Boy, I think it was Bubble Boy and then that. Bubble Boy is pretty funny.
So, okay, so just to clarify, because I'm not a Jake Gyllenhaal expert.
I am.
Just to clarify,
Go
you've got Bubble Boy.
Yes.
You've got Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
And Brokeback Mountain.
Oh, yeah.
That's quite a resume. Let's handle a little business. If you're listening to us, you're probably doing so via Fireside, which is our host. They handle our hosting, our website, everything. Or you may be listening to a podcast app. I recommend Podcast Addict. It can automatically download all of your podcasts with an RSS feed. If you want any info on that, it is readily available, but you can find our website, apexlive.fireside.fm. Send us email, send us audio commentary, whatever you like, apexlivepodcast@gmail.com. And you can look us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Apex Live Podcast. Other than the work foolishness, Steve, anything else going on of note? Anything driving you nuts? I know you're not terribly aware of all kinds of stuff that's going on.
You know what? Tell you the truth,
you're steering clear.
I'm trying to be more self-aware.
Okay.
And aware of what is being put in my life by God. And that's basically where I'm going with that. Like trying to become more self-aware, more introspective, a little bit more passionate, but then again, more angry at just idiot stuff, you know? So,
right. Well, and that's good. And I think that also means that you're going to be a little disconnected from what we just so broadly refer to as pop culture. Things that make people like us, and I think an increasing number of people who I respect, look at certain things and certain news stories and just go, why do you care? I think it was last month. It hasn't been in May. I think it was last month in April. The big news story was one of the Kardashian whores had a kid with an NBA guy. Yeah. And there was some big news story, and I don't know the details of it because I refused to click any of it.
I think I hit on that a little bit too. It's supposed to be the bodyguard's baby or something like that.
Right. But I looked at it and I said,
checking my email.
I said, why is this a headline? And then the logic follows, and you say, well, it's a headline because people are reading it, and that's how they make money. Why do people care? Okay, well, that's never happened. I'm going to leave that gap in it for a very specific reason. What just happened is the power went out. And the best part of that, Steve, is that I had just yelled, why does anyone care? And it knocked the power out on my entire block.
That had some real resonance.
So I am that angry about this Kardashian foolishness. And, I think my anger is justified because there is absolutely no reason for anyone to give a crap about what's going on in the lives of people that they will never meet. They will never know. Will never know them. No one will ever care if they're alive or dead.
No.
Why do you care about celebrities' lives? If you are that concerned about what any of the Kardashians or any of these other pop culture people who are famous just for being famous are doing, if that is that much of a priority to you, I would suggest you take that as a hint that you need to fix a lot of stuff in your own life to make it, at the very least, interesting. It doesn't even have to be useful, just interesting at that point.
Yeah, if you can pay attention to that at that level, you should have zero debt or anything else like that before you even get there.
That's correct. Now, with that said, I don't like the term devil's advocate. I don't want to be an advocate of the devil. But I will say I can play contrarian. And there are, I guess, instances where maybe you need to show some interest in menial, mindless things like that to distract from the idiocy going on in your own life. And I say that because I've got plenty of that crap to deal with right now.
Oh, yeah.
Because my family, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because this is sort of a public forum and it's not terribly necessary to do so. But you know how sometimes in a family, there's that one person that manages to literally destroy the rest of the family en masse? Well, we have one of those. And for this person, for, let's see, 88 to 2016, that's a good run. That's 28 years. Wreaked absolute havoc on my family. That side of the family, especially on the immediate level of the family tree, was never the same again. And then we had a death in the family. And then that person did not talk to me or much of anyone else for about a year.
And it broke your heart.
And it was a nice year. It was quiet. I could talk in this tone and it would be okay. I didn't have any worries along those lines. And then they thought it would be a good idea to try to mend fences and talk and be nice. And I said, you know what? That's the right thing to do, because I think that's what the Lord would want me to do. I think I need to put things in the past, even if they were never really acknowledged, much less addressed. And we'll try to do this the right way. And I did. And it was going over there and spending time and trying to show some care, even if it had not been earned. And I know that that's a tough thing to say, because we should care even if it's not been earned, because earning something is arbitrary and kind of subjective. So let's just try to do the right thing regardless of other people.
You have to do it for your own soul.
Well, guess what?
You gotta do it for yourself.
The old version of this person is back.
Because it was always there.
Oh, you better believe it.
There must have been some kind of monetary or personal gain to change that.
This is what sociopaths do. It is what master manipulators do. It's what narcissists do. And when someone manages to tick off all three of those boxes on the checklist, bad things happen. So it has been an absolute circus for about 2.5 weeks of a bunch of crap in the family. And it comes down to this one issue. And there are listeners who will know exactly who I'm talking about without me saying it. So I don't really have to say it, but I'll just give you, with brevity, an overview. Around the time that someone passed away a couple years ago, it was the same day of Dave's championship fight.
I remember that.
You were there.
Yeah, I was there.
And I had to come from the funeral to go to that fight and work. And that was a very difficult day. Well, a couple of, probably a month.
Well, you had
2
been
months.
You had been traveling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
So a couple of months after that, we decided it would be a nice thing to do. This entire side of the family, the one that this other person had isolated and almost vilified to a point, thought it would be a good idea to create a memorial plaque to put it at the decedent's place of work to honor them.
Yeah.
And everyone who donated to it and everyone who had kind of come together to brainstorm on it had their names listed on the plaque. And the troublemaker was not listed on the plaque because they had made it abundantly clear over the years that they didn't want to be a part of it. Now, publicly, yes. Privately, a whole different story, and you could tell by the way that there was conduct. And they wouldn't admit this to save their life. Well, not only was this person's name not put on the plaque, they weren't even made aware of the plaque.
Good.
Yeah, and I think that was correct. If you're going to alienate an entire group of people, don't be mad when they alienate you back. Or just ignore the fact that you're still drawing breath. So
that's the best medicine for most people.
Right, and all it is, Steve, is karma. That's all any of that is. So we go through all that. Didn't even know the plaque existed. Well, for some reason, they went to this place a couple of weeks ago and just managed to find themselves in the same area as the plaque and saw the plaque and was not happy. They didn't know who did it. So they start asking questions. Who did this? Who did this? They, of course, turned this into what?
Me, I.
I hadn't even told you anything about this, and you got it
I know people like this.
That's right. So it's all about me, and they make it all about them. The whole thing is about them from start to finish. Their primary complaint, Steve, was that
their name wasn't on the plaque.
Oh, it gets better than that. They were afraid that someone would see the plaque and then think that because their name wasn't on it, that they had gotten a divorce. See, I wish that we had a little bit of video so I could have screen capped your face just now.
Care what people think about you much.
Well, this is the thing. And I figured this out a few days later. I was like, why are you that concerned about what people that you don't know and who don't know you and you will never meet think about whether or not you got a divorce or whatever this is. And then it dawned on me, you have to cling to the opinion of those who you don't know.
Yeah.
Because those who you do know already have an opinion of you that if you had the little slider like you do online,
I like that.
You would it would be over toward the less than favorable area. You will find people who know this person, but they kind of know them, acquaintance level. And it's, aren't they great? Aren't they so nice? And you don't know them very well, do you? Then as you get closer to the people who have been around a while and have encountered more, it's more of a seething and a stomach churning kind of sensation. So karma has come back. We were then informed by this person that they were going to file a request with this place to have it removed. Yeah, you can't do that because it's the property of the people who donated it and the people who have it, so you don't really get to do that. So they have tried multiple channels to do something about this, and all of them have failed.
Can I interject real quick?
Please do.
I just this sounds like a female. I don't even know, but just these actions, I don't know any male that would act like this.
See, here's what we're going to do. We're going to call this segment Moron Mad Libs.
Is this a female,
yes. Because if we just started... remember, we can go back and listen to this. Listeners, run it back. I did not give any hints as to identities of people, any details of it, and Steve just started plugging stuff in.
And I don't know anybody in your family.
Because he knows.
I know your dad.
You've met my dad.
And that's it. I met your dad.
Yeah, you never met my brother.
Never met your brother. I don't know anybody else in your family.
Yeah.
And you don't, I mean, we talk a little bit, but there was never any kind of detail or anything.
No, we never talked about that.
No, not about this at all.
No, we're usually talking about other lunacy that we encounter because, let's face it, we deal with a lot of crap.
Even my immediate family, I have no time or anything. It's all about personal growth, and that's all it is. Everything's about personal growth, and if you're hindering my personal growth, or if I'm hindering yours, I will completely remove myself from your life.
Well, that's one thing that I think we really connect on, because doing this is a personal growth thing. It's an outlet. It's a creative outlet. It's something that we use to build in a lot of different ways personally, and who knows where it could end up. So many things that are going on right now for both of us. It's nothing but it's dead weight, and that's the only way that I know how to explain it. It's carrying the piano on your back, and even things that shouldn't be that way are starting to be that way. And I'm getting really sick of it, and that's why I'm so excited about doing this and being more regular with it, and hopefully doing the other show that I'm going to start doing next month. The more of that stuff I can do, that's going to help me on a personal level and on a mental and an emotional, even a spiritual level, to get things out. Because when you don't, it is just a nightmare. And I have trouble dealing with people sometimes who don't even seek an outlet.
Face value of everything.
Yeah. It's the people who, they never have an outlet for anything like this because they have no interest in it. Their interest is always on focusing on everybody else and their crap. And if it's not enough for the people who are just around them, then they go to the celebrity level. They go to all this other crap.
And what's that tell you by how that's being pushed for the main media part?
If I ever get to a point where I am seriously, objectively concerned about the lives of celebrities like this, I really need to do a self-inventory of some sort. And that's something that you say you're in the process of. But it would need to take on a whole new life.
Always in the process of self-inventory.
Well, and if you stop doing that, you're dead.
No, yeah. We've done that. Pauses to where you're just 3 months go down the road, as I was saying with boxing. Mm-hmm. It goes away. You know, where'd the time go? I don't even know where I've been. You know what I mean? In that aspect. But that's anything in life.
Well, we've done 2 shows this month. But we went 5 months and didn't do one. But legitimately, we looked at it and we didn't get to do one. We had so many things going on. But when we look back at those 5 months or 4 months,
where'd they go?
We go, okay, what is it that was going on? It was just a wash of stuff. It felt like high tide coming in, and it just gets overwhelming to a point. But there's, even with all that said, there are some things that some people have to deal with that are infinitely more difficult. And one of them happened in the news today, another school shooting, this time in Texas. Still limited information by the time that we've been able to put any of this together, but 10 dead, 10 injured at least. And word is that they found explosives in the building. I don't know if that is totally confirmed yet because I haven't been able to check it. I don't know what it is. But explosives, apparently a dude, they think it may be 2 shooters, but definitely one, had the trench coat, had pistols and a shotgun, no AR-15. Where's your narrative this time? But it's happening again.
How many MAOI inhibitors were they on?
That will come out, and I get you know as well as I do.
Yeah. I've taken them, and you know what? It makes you an emotionless robot.
It makes you a zombie.
And it
makes you a zombie.
And no matter what, a lot of people, more than what they will admit, because everybody thinks it's crazy, those will make you hear voices, and it does not tell you to do good things. Well, and that's why I was like, you know what? I'm done with this stuff.
Obviously I'm a Christian. I'm a believer. I believe in everything the Bible says. Absolutely everything, cover to cover, every word. And one thing that I definitely believe to be true is that we are fighting a spiritual battle. Mm-hmm. And I think that there are drugs, and this can be prescription drugs, this can be illicit drugs, any of these things.
God gave us all the drugs that we need.
I think they open a doorway. I think they open a doorway for stuff to come in. And when you have these, you cannot describe what happened today, what happened in Sutherland Springs, what happened in Parkland, Florida, Columbine, Sandy Hook, name any of them.
Nevada.
The only way you can, exactly.
It doesn't have to be a school shooting.
The only way you can describe these actions is that they are pure evil. Well, what defines evil? Satan, and his demons and his fallen. That's what evil is. That's what personifies these things. And the fact that we're seeing the common thread as these antidepressant, anti-anxiety medications that are being used and overused.
Probably Chantix in there too.
You know, I've heard a lot of stuff about that. I've heard
bad for you.
I've heard a lot of stuff about the quit smoking drug Chantix. I've heard it gives you crazy dreams and starts messing with you. And then the other one, of course, is Ambien, because you can lose 3 days of your life and not know what in the world's going on.
I've taken it. It's bad for you.
I want
sleep without dreams is not good.
90%. Well, life without dreams is bad too.
Yeah.
But 90% of this stuff that people take is poison. You're putting poison in your system. That's all you're doing. You are putting poison into your body and then wondering why things don't go well.
You're trying to say that the things that have been put on the earth were made imperfect, and they're not. We make them imperfect.
Genesis 1:1. I wrote this in my book. Faith begins in Genesis 1. And the first verse of Genesis 1 says, and this is not a Bible program. If you've listened to the previous 10 episodes, you know that. But it's foundational to my life, okay?
I'm a bad-mouthed Christian. I'm sorry, but
if you are going to be a person of faith, faith begins in Genesis 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. If you cannot accept that fact, if you cannot believe that fact, then you're discrediting the authenticity and the inspiration of the entirety of the Bible. Mm-hmm. Because this is how it works. Either all of it's true or none of it's true.
None of it's true, yeah.
This is pass-fail, and the passing score is 100%.
Yeah.
It's the same with people calling themselves a prophet. Well, then you better never, ever, ever once be wrong.
No.
Because a prophet of God, 100% correct. 100%.
True.
Now,
true prophet.
So, again, let's follow the logic. We say that how many times on this show? Follow the logic. Okay, let's follow it. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. I believe he did it in 6 days. I believe he did it in 6 literal days. I believe in a young earth, all that stuff. You don't like it? Email me. More than happy to have a discussion with you. I'll even bring you on the show because I really don't care what you think to begin with. But I believe that all of that was created. And I believe that if God put it on this earth, he put it here for a reason. Okay? Now, think about the things that includes. He put cannabis leaves here. He put coca plants here.
Dandelion roots, I've been eating on them.
Now,
good.
We can take things and do bad things with them. He put a lot of things here.
Compounds.
For a good reason, and we did things with them that are bad. That's what humanity does in a fallen world. It's how that works.
We can do what God can't do.
But I also think that there's a lot of stuff that is being created by humanity, and we think it's a good thing until it gets proven to us that it's not. And a lot of these pharmaceuticals are a perfect example. We live in a state that has, per capita, the worst opioid problem in the country. And in addition to that, there is a county in our state that has the highest rate of opioid abuse of any single county in America.
Mm-hmm. Was that Cabell County?
It's either, I think it's Cabell or McDowell.
Well, I mean, as far as, if you say per capita, I would have to get to McDowell.
But think about that. Yes. Or Wyoming County. It's bad too.
Wyoming.
But add all of that together, add all of the fact that we can't decide between the three which one it is, should tell you something.
Bad.
That should tell you something. But even with all of that put together.
We have people overdosing here all the time.
All the time. When you put all of that together, it makes you realize one thing. We don't have a clue. We do not have a clue. So if we are that insistent on putting poison into our body, why are we so insistent on downplaying or ignoring the possibilities of things that are natural, that are good? I don't think it's a good idea to abuse anything, whether it's natural or synthetic.
No,
I don't think
moderation, everything.
I don't think it's a good idea to go and smoke weed 3 times a day.
I totally agree with you.
I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing to use cocaine. I don't think it's a good thing to do any of these things that naturally appear. Cocaine, by the way, does not naturally appear. You have to do some things to process it. But we'll talk about marijuana. We can do an entire episode on medical marijuana. I know who to bring in as a guest, and we can talk about it. The derivatives, the legality, all those things. Mm-hmm. There is a use for it. If there wasn't, God would not have put it here. That is a fact. People who have severe MS, people who have cancer, and they have no appetite. They have pain that is off the charts. Would you rather them use CBD oil or some type of derivative of cannabis that is being closely monitored? Would you rather have them using that or using something that was created in a lab, half of which you have these substances, and you ask there's one in particular that I'm not going to name. Yeah. There's one medicine in particular. It's not a pain med, but it is a medication. It's a prescription med. It's on the schedule. So it's something it's a controlled substance. And if you read all the documentation, if you go deep enough, they essentially tell you, we're not really sure how it works. We just know that it works, but we're really not sure how.
We don't know.
Is that not a red flag to anyone? Is anyone paying attention?
The power's still on.
I was doing that to test and see if it would go out again, and it didn't. But really, how could you release something? How could the FDA release anything and deem it safe for mass consumption?
Because they don't care.
If they don't know, unless they are already in the bag.
Oh, Rumsfeld with his, the blood pressure and stuff like that, the medication that he was in, they found out it doesn't do anything. It actually makes it worse.
So let's look at that in comparison to,
was that Crestor or something like that?
I think it was Crestor.
Yeah.
Well, Crestor, is Crestor blood pressure or is it cholesterol?
It's cholesterol, but a lot of that stuff is just garbage. Yeah. I mean, it's just, and if you want to treat an illness, however you want to treat it, whose business is it? And some, pretty much a government that doesn't even believe in what it stands for as far as a nation built under God. Well, I don't really care what their opinion on anything in my life is about, and I don't think anybody else should as well. That's just my opinion. But
we've seen how they behave on pretty much every issue.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, taking any kind of notes from a bunch of mutants like that makes no sense to me. Seriously.
A bunch of mutants. I think that's a pretty safe way to put that.
Just overeducated idiots.
Well, one other thing happened during our hiatus that I'm going to talk about a little bit before we go to a break, and we're going to go get Justin Novaria and bring him in. We're going to Skype him in from his home in Zanesville, Ohio, where he always is, because he doesn't venture out a whole bunch because he has a wife and 3 kids and a job that he works overnight. So there's not a lot of travel involved. It's mainly just boxing and food and the family. I don't know how much
BFF.
I don't know how much you ever listened to morning radio, especially in the 90s and 2000s.
A lot of
growing
Stern.
up.
A lot of Stern.
Well, then you'll know the names I'm about to bring up.
Bubba the Love Sponge. I listened to a lot of Love Sponge.
Bubba was out of Florida, wasn't he?
I lived in Florida.
Yeah, I thought
in the early 90s, so I listened to a lot of Bubba Love Sponge.
He was really popular in the 90s and especially the 2000s because of his connection to professional wrestling.
Yeah.
I think.
But, I mean, some of the stuff on his show, like...
Oh, he was off the wall.
Fuck you and fuck you too. That was pretty cool. Like the two little... The ninjas named that. Fuck you. Oh, fuck you too. I like fuck you too.
A nice impromptu impression. I like that.
That was good.
Well, during our hiatus, one of the giants of talk radio in the history of radio finally stepped away from the mic after 50 years on the air.
Who's this?
He is 78 years old, and on March 29th, we heard the last broadcast of Don Imus.
Imus is done.
And
Imus in the morning.
Imus in the morning.
Yeah, I listen to him.
And
going to school when I skip my bus.
You know, there aren't many that can really claim that they did what Don Imus did in radio. First of all, for a 50-year career, he got fired 4 times.
He got Donald Sterling on the last one, though.
But you know what? He came back.
Yeah. He
came back. And that shows you a staying power that is really quite remarkable because this is a culture now where you're generally speaking one and done.
Oh, yeah. That's everything.
Even if it's nothing serious, if a bunch of people on social media decide that it's serious, it goes completely berserk.
Yeah.
But he did an interview on his way out that amounted to an exit interview, and they asked him what he thought of his career, and he said, I think I'm one of the 5 best in the history of the business to do this, because and I like his reasoning. He said, no one has ever done what I've done for as long as I've done it, as well as I've done it, and made the money that I've made.
He did it the longest, didn't he?
Absolutely.
What about King? How long did the King do it?
Well, who, Larry King?
Yeah.
Larry King did it for a long, long time, but he really didn't do a morning show, and he didn't do a show in the same vein. He was more of a straight 1 hour set down talk format than anything else.
Yeah, that's true.
But they asked him where he thought he was, and he said he thought he was in the top 5. So the interviewer thought they'd throw him for a loop and said, okay, who else is in your top 5? And despite a rivalry that lasted for 30 years, he put Howard Stern in the top 5 and said, I think Stern needs to be there because you can't deny what he's become. And that's saying a lot. But
that's being a realist.
That is.
Yeah.
And you have to remember how big talk radio was in the 1990s.
It was good.
Talk radio in the 90s was the peak.
I loved it.
Because at the same time, you had Don Imus and Imus in the Morning nationally syndicated. You had Howard Stern nationally syndicated. You had the Bob and Tom Show nationally syndicated.
I listened to that too.
Okay. Think about all of that going on at the same time. Don Imus predates, to a degree, Stern, but he sort of took his show in a bit of a direction that was a Stern derivative. After a while, he became a little bit more
risque type,
a little bit more to that. But he was always kind of the thinking man's Stern show because he did interviews at a higher level than Stern did in terms of who he brought in to talk to. But you had him, you had Stern, you had Bob and Tom. These are guys that predate Opie and Anthony in the 2000s in New York. They predate guys like Bubba the Love Sponge. There was a show called Kevin and Bean out in Los Angeles, and I'm not listening to a show where one of the co-hosts is named Bean, and that is just on pure principle. And even though I'm not a big fan of them, John Boy and Billy were around for a long time, broadcasting out of Charlotte. And
I listened to them a little bit.
It was more of a Southern feel, but they weren't my cup of tea, but they were around. And Imus is one of these guys that was a pioneer and led people into it. And what's ironic about this now is that people are going off on Howard Stern in the last year or year and a half because he has gone completely PC.
Really?
And, you know,
what a turd.
When he left terrestrial radio and went to Sirius satellite radio,
he sold his soul.
Everybody thought, well, now there's no filter. You can do whatever you want. And you know what he did? For a long time, they went completely berserk.
And I had that Sirius XM radio, so I know what you're talking about. You know.
And things went well. And then about a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe a little longer now, he hired someone named Marcy Turk. And Marcy Turk has no background in radio. She's connected to a writer of a book on leadership or business place efficiency or something. And it was someone that Howard knew, brings her in. And now she's coming in she became, you remember Gary Delabate?
Is she hot,
that was the
though?
producer.
Baba Booey.
Not real. Yeah. He now has to report to her. Okay?
After all the years.
If you want to talk to Howard, if you want to even speak to Howard, you have to go through her. She has put herself into this position, and it's killing the show. People are listening. For some of the best years of that show is when you had Howard, Robin, Fred Norris, Artie Lang.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
Jackie Martling. Mm-hmm. Artie's gone. Howard will not even speak to him.
Really?
Jackie, now, and there was a split, and Artie had some drug issues, and I get all that.
Cocaine.
But 10 plus years with that guy, and you won't even take his calls. So, won't talk to Artie, won't talk to Jackie. Mm-hmm. People are being forced out left and right. Benji Bronk has been removed from that show. And it's losing the voice that made it what it was. What made Howard Stern so good was he was fearless, even if you didn't like what he said.
Yeah.
Guys like Stern, guys like Don Imus, and to a lesser degree Bob and Tom, because they catered their show in a different direction.
It was more palatable. I mean, you could have it, where you don't have to really make your kids not listen to it, because there's some innuendos in there. But then again, they don't have to understand it.
Sure, but these people were pioneers and defenders and champions for free speech. Mm-hmm. Why would someone like Howard Stern start to bow down and cater to these people? The PC crowd has destroyed the prominence of free speech in this country because you're shamed for having the audacity to have an opinion.
Because he's put his stuff on a pedestal
and
now.
That kind of stuff is why podcasting is such a big deal now. Mm-hmm. Because you don't have to listen to the FCC. And the PC crowd, you can just say, well, if you don't like it, don't download it. It's really not my problem.
Yeah.
And that logic applies to TV and radio too, but you can't just stumble upon a podcast. You can stumble upon something on TV or radio. But one thing that really stood out to me, two things about Imus before we take a break. Number one, when he got married to his second wife, Deirdre, who came in to be a guest on the show as a contest or something, ends up meeting her there and marries her 2 years later. When they got married...
She must have been hot.
She's all right. When
she got it. She understood.
I'd say that's probably it, more than anything else. When they got married, they bought a ranch in New Mexico and set it up as a working ranch for kids with cancer.
That's cool.
And over the years, they put a couple $1 million into it, and they thought, how are we going to pay for the entirety of this thing? It's like 3,200 acres.
Yeah.
So
that's huge.
Somebody gave him the idea, why don't you sell commemorative acres to your listeners? Mm-hmm. And he said, nobody's going to pay for an acre of land they don't actually get. I said, well, it's kids with cancer. Maybe they will.
Yeah.
They sold acres at $5,000 a piece.
It's kind of like putting your name on a star.
They could not sell them quick. They couldn't answer the phone quick enough.
Really?
They have raised, since that thing opened 20 some odd years ago, at one point, probably 7 or 8 years ago, the number was $50 million for kids with cancer.
Wow.
And it is probably closer to 100 now. And Imus fell off of a horse and injured his lungs, and really couldn't breathe at that altitude anymore, so they had to stop running it. So he said, I want to put it up for sale, and we'll start the Imus Ranch Foundation. So all of that money that would have gone to the ranch will now go to charities that support the same mission for kids with cancer and helping them out that we had. So now all that money, 100% goes to that. When he put the ranch up for sale, when it sells, all of that money, 100%, is going to go to that Imus Ranch Foundation. Just found out it sold about a month ago for $12.5 million.
Sweet.
So all of that is going to go to those kids. And there are people who are criticizing it and how much of that money is going to the kids that we know of and all this stuff. People, how much of a finger are you lifting to go help kids with cancer right now? This is something that is completely selfless. It's an amazing thing to do, and him and his wife and that family, his brother Fred, who passed away a few years ago, and everyone who listened to that show knew him. They should really be applauded for everything that they did, and I think that's a big part of his legacy. Number two, that show was simulcast for years on C-SPAN, and then on MSNBC, and then on Fox Business Network. And the show was good for the last 2 or 3 years, probably, but Imus was getting up there. He's in his late 70s. When the show was really good, it was when his newsman was still with him, and it was a guy named Charles McCord. Mm-hmm. There's never been anyone with a voice more suitable for doing radio than Charles McCord. And what made him so good was he was a consummate professional. But occasionally he would have a complete, utter meltdown and just start screaming and losing his mind. And Imus would be stuck on something and wouldn't get off of it. and McCord would just flip out on him for doing it. And a couple of them were caught on film, and one of them is just generally known to fans as the Whittaker Chambers incident. And there's a backstory to that. And Whittaker Chambers was a guy that was a communist spy in the 40s and 50s, I believe, and defected, came here.
Is that the Tinker Tailor Soldier movie? Is that who that's about?
I don't know. But a biography about him won the Book of the Year award in the 90s. But they were talking about that book, and Chambers eventually, after he defected, came here, started working for, I think, Newsweek, or one of those magazines, became an award-winning journalist, helped with investigations into people who were spies here. And one of those cases was the Alger Hiss case, who was found to be a communist spy. And Richard Nixon was somehow mixed up in all of this, too, at one point. And that was the subject of the discussion that day. Well, Imus wouldn't get off of it. And an hour later, McCord had enough, and he just completely loses his mind and melts down. So that video is out there. And then there's one more.
I'll have to check them out now.
There's one more where they're interviewing a guy from Newsweek. Newsweek's a pretty prominent publication. And he starts in again saying something stupid, and McCord just flips out and then references Whittaker Chambers and says, it's Whittaker Chambers all over again. So on the episode page for this episode on our Apex Live podcast website, I'm going to put the two videos on there and embed it so everybody can watch it. But really, the biggest point of this is it's an era of talk radio that was... I'm not going to say it was the pinnacle, because for all we know, it may get better in the future. But it's never been as good up to this point as it was when they were at their peak. And I know Imus and Stern didn't like each other, but they helped push each other to new heights and to do some great things. But more than anything, Imus was a guy who was always honest, whether you liked his opinion or not. And he's someone who championed free speech above all else. And for anyone who has worked in radio, for anyone who enjoys radio, anyone who likes to do anything in the broadcasting realm like I do and Steve like you do now, thank you, Don Imus. You are a true radio icon. You're a pioneer. And more than anything else, I know you wore that cowboy hat all the time. I can't think of more fitting attire for someone who was a pioneer like you were. He's going to be missed, and he's not dead. But he's going to be missed as having that voice as prominent as it was.
Yeah, he has a good voice.
Absolutely. And he was just such a good interviewer.
Methodical type voice, nice and kind of deep and type raspy,
Bitingly sarcastic. But he always had that angle to him that you never knew it was coming out. So greatly appreciate his work over the years. And you can find a lot of stuff of his on YouTube, but I'll put those two videos on the page for this episode on the Apex Live website. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Justin Novaria joins us from his home in Ohio. He'll be on the spot, and we'll talk about boxing news. That's on the second half of episode 11 of Apex Live, right after this.
I'll try almost anything. So when Mattel Electronics asked me to compare their Intellivision games with Atari, I gave it a try. I compared Atari baseball with Intellivision and found Intellivision played much more like real baseball. Then I compared Atari football with Intellivision. Again, Intellivision played more like the real game. In my opinion, if you try them both, there's only one conclusion you can come to. Intellivision from Mattel Electronics.
Second half of episode 11 of Apex Live. I'm Brad, that's Steve.
Hello.
Joining us now from his home in Zanesville, Ohio, a return guest. It's the teddy bear, Justin Novaria. Justin, welcome back, my friend.
Thanks for having me back.
All right, so last time you were here, you were in the midst of the pain and the suffering from dealing with the idiots in our state athletic commission and having a fight scrapped 20 minutes before it was supposed to start. And it seems like it wasn't that long ago. That was like 6 months ago.
It seems like a month ago. Jeez.
Yeah, that kind of stupidity lingers.
Yeah.
Well, the good news is... It
definitely don't seem like it was that long ago already.
No, it doesn't. And the sad thing is we haven't been able to do anything to correct it in recent months, but hopefully something's going to come down the pike here soon and get you back in the ring and get some good things going. In the meantime, boxing has not slowed down, and we've had a few things going on recently in the world of boxing that have they caused some trouble. One of them is we were supposed to have the Gennady Golovkin-Canelo Alvarez rematch.
Canelo.
And what happened? Canelo gets popped for a positive drug test for clenbuterol, and that's what has some people calling him Clenello now, and I really like that. That makes me happy. And the end result is Triple G says, you know what, I'm going to fight anyway. I don't care what anybody does. If he doesn't want to fight me, fine, I'll fight somebody. So a few different opponents come down the line. Some of them say no, some of them are turned down by the Athletic Commission, and he ends up fighting Vandis Martirosyan, who was never a world beater. He was an Olympic team member for the United States a few years ago.
Good fighter, though.
And he's not bad. He's tall. He's durable. And what happens? Triple G goes in and positively annihilates him inside of 2 rounds. So, Justin, your thoughts on the fight with Alvarez not happening, and then what happened with Triple G and Martirosyan?
First off, I want to say a few years ago, it's been 18 years since Vandis has been on the Olympic team. Can you believe that?
That's crazy.
Oh my! He was on the 2000 team.
Yeah, he was on the 2000 team.
That was before Andre Ward. That was
Andre Ward was 2004.
Yeah, that was before Andre. Oh my Lord.
Yeah. Yeah, he was with Jason Estrada, Ron Seiler, who else?
Oh, all of those big names that went on to dominate. He was on the... No, Tarver was 96. He wasn't even on the Tarver team. Oh, he was on the team with Jeff Lacey.
Yeah, I would fact check myself real quick, but I don't want to accidentally close out your guys' call.
Not a problem. He was on... I know for a fact he was on the team with Jeff Lacey. Because that was the team that someone that you and I both know, Gary Toney, was the head coach of that team. With USA Boxing, and I know Jeff was on that team because it was 2004, I guess, whenever he had a belt and then got positively annihilated by Joe Calzaghe. Holy crap.
When did he fight Jones?
Yeah.
Lacey didn't fight Jones until, 2010?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. When he got like clowned real bad.
Oh, that was just terrible. Well, the real fun in boxing recently took place last weekend. We had a big show on ESPN and we had a big show on HBO. And the main event on ESPN, and I love the fact that they put a fight this big. Bob Arum's doing good things right now. It was nice. I don't care how old he is. And to put a fight this big on free TV on ESPN has just been huge for top-ranked boxing and a great thing for the boxing community. Vasily Lomachenko just gives more evidence to his claim as the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the sport, stopping Jorge Linares in 10 rounds to win the WBA lightweight championship. That's a jump up 2 divisions from where he started at 126. And that was a fight that, for me, there wasn't ever really any doubt, okay, who's the most skilled of the two? Who's the one who's got the better pedigree of the two?
Linares is good, though.
The question was, as big and strong as Linares is, and he is a talented guy. He was always the one that was talked about as having all of the tools. There were times where he didn't put it all together, but he had all of the tools. So take that into consideration, as well as the size difference. How is Lomachenko going to deal with it? Okay. I don't care what the 3 judges at ringside said, because 2 of the 3 had absolutely absurd scorecards. One of them had it a draw going into the 10th round. One of them had, I believe, Linares ahead by a point going into the 10th round, and one had Lomachenko ahead. That was a fight that it was a statement for Lomachenko more than anything else, because he stood in the pocket. He made one mistake, got caught with a balance shot and got dropped. It happens because he got a little overconfident, got hit right on the button and dropped and popped right back up. And that was a first for him, and he called it a learning experience. But for him to come in and do what he did for 9 out of those 10 rounds, he put on a clinic, stops Linares with a liver shot. Steve, did you get to see that fight?
Yeah, I did watch that. Yep, I did.
What did you think of Lomachenko, not just in terms of winning the fight and winning another belt in another weight class? What did you think of how he dealt with the size of Linares? Is he someone that you think needs to stay at 135, or does he need to go to 130 and tell guys like Gervonta Davis and the rest of them, hey, come down here and get me?
I would go to 30. I'd go to 30. I'd fight those guys at that. You know, I mean, he moved well. His footwork is amazing. It doesn't matter how big his opponent is. I like the fact that he took that straight right on a balance issue, like you're saying. It was a hard shot right in the mouth. You know what I mean?
But is anybody going to come fight him? at 30.
Davis is never going to fight him.
It's already gotten to a point where he's having to chase fighters now. The only reason the Linares fight happened is because Linares wanted to make it happen. He went out of his way to tell his promoter, I want this fight to happen. No one else is going to do it. Guys right now are going to run from 35 to 40 to try to avoid fighting him. Justin, what do you think the future holds for Lomachenko?
I mean, it irritates me because everybody right now is talking about Mikey Garcia.
Oh yeah,
coming down to 35 from 40. But I mean, he went to 40 to fight Adrian Broner. I mean, that he didn't beat a world beater in Adrian Broner. Adrian Broner's a good fighter, but BU has a whole thread.
He's a better Broner.
He's wasted potential. He could have been great.
Absolutely.
But he's never had the proper motivation. So everybody's talking about Mikey Garcia coming to 35 to fight Lomachenko, but nobody's talking about Mikey Garcia has to get past Robert Easter first. And that annoys me, but to go back, I'm getting way off topic.
That's an intriguing fight for me, though. Garcia and Robert Easter, I think, is a better fight than people give it credit for, because obviously Mikey is a better technical fighter than Easter, but Easter's got so much athleticism. He can make up some of that ground with that. I think that's a better fight than people think.
He's a 6'1" lightweight.
That's crazy.
Isn't that sick?
People don't understand that. I looked it up the other day, and he's got almost a 10-inch reach advantage on Mikey Garcia.
But he's got to do it now because you know as well as I do, just like De La Hoya starting out at 130, he can't make that for very much longer.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He was 6'1" when we were kids, and he was fighting 119. So we've been on several regional teams together. That's nuts. Yeah,
that is absolutely freakish.
He's skin and bone.
But like you were saying, back to the line of reasoning we were getting into.
Yeah, back to Lomachenko. I mean, the dude is a monster. We're getting a gift right now, getting to watch him in this era, because in 20, 30 years, they're going to talk about him like he's one of the greats, which, I mean, he is a very, very good. He's like an Orlando Canizales on steroids.
Well, there's a difference between great and special. This is a fighter that you look at and say, just like a prime, like 95 through 2001 or 2 Roy Jones. I am privileged to get to sit here and watch this guy fight, because he does what Roy Jones did, which is he fights guys that are legitimate A and B level fighters and make them look ordinary. And that is scary to watch happen in the ring, because we're dealing with a level of athlete now that didn't exist in the 40s and 50s and 60s with Sugar Ray Robinson. He got beat by Ray Robinson was great. Don't get me wrong, but he got beat by guys like Carmen Basilio and Rocky Graziano, who were face first brawlers who just took a beating until you got tired and then they beat you.
Those guys are hard to deal with.
What in the world do you think Roy Jones would have done to Carmen Basilio? I mean, it would have lasted 3 rounds.
Yeah, he'd have embarrassed him.
Exactly. And it's a different level of athleticism and of talent and of training and of knowledge of the sport. So when you see someone who in that world is doing this at 397-1 as an amateur and then coming out and doing what he's doing as a pro, we need to appreciate every time he's in the ring. And the best part of that is you've got Top Rank managing him, Top Rank promoting him. So we get to see him on free TV right now. We didn't get that kind of treatment in the 80s when boxing was on ABC, CBS, and NBC all the time. We didn't get that then. So to have that now is absolutely incredible for the boxing public.
Yeah, and one of the biggest differences, I just want to point out, between Roy and Vasil, Roy was so special because of his athleticism. He could do freak things that people couldn't do.
He did everything wrong.
Special. Yeah, Vasil's so special is because he's fighting on a completely different plane than everybody else. He's seeing things differently. Like, he's looking at a situation completely different than you or I would look at it, and he's just attacking it like with precise timing and efficiency. He doesn't waste a single movement. Like, Roy would do flashy stuff, and he was outrageous to watch because he did shit like, You can't do that and get away with it, but he got away with it. But then you've seen how that affected him as he got older.
He got away with it until he didn't, is what happened.
Yeah, and until he had to become a legitimate, like, skillful fighter, he wasn't elite anymore. He still had boxing skill, yes. He fought at a very high level, but he was not like that over-the-top fighter that he was. Vasil, I believe, as he gets older, he's got that skill and he's got that timing, and he's not doing everything wrong. He's doing it right. He's just doing it so right that nobody else can touch him.
Well, the thing about Lomachenko for me is that his skill level and his skill base, along with the fact that he stayed an amateur for so long, and even at the highest level, you're fighting 3-round fights, he is going to have a longevity because of that skill level that can extend almost indefinitely the same way that Bernard Hopkins did. You can argue that Roy Jones was a more technically sound fighter after his incredible athleticism started to decline, and he had to be more skillful and more basic in the way that he fought because he couldn't do all those crazy special things anymore. When he turned 40 or 41 and was still winning fights against B and C level fighters, he was fighting more technically correct then than he ever did. But that's because he couldn't do all the things that made him so special when he was going out and fighting an undefeated Bryant Brannon and wrecking him inside of 2 rounds on HBO. And you thought, Bryant Brannon got shot 5 times. And it didn't faze him, and he's an undefeated fighter, and now he just got destroyed on national television in his first major title fight. He did that to a lot of people. So you're right. That's one thing that is definitely, that's the major difference between those two is what he's able to do, but how he's able to do it. That's a major difference.
And I want to point out that Roy Jones hit his hands behind his back and dropped Virgil Hill.
Did it to Glenn Kelly, too.
Yeah.
Did it to Glenn Kelly, put his hands behind his back, hit him with a left hook on the ropes, and knocked him out.
It was a right hand on Virgil, wasn't it? It was a right hand to the body right under the elbow? Or was it a left hook?
He stopped Virgil with a right hand to the body and broke, I think, 1 or 2 ribs in the 4th round, 1 shot. And that's the one that whenever he landed the punch, George Foreman was calling the fight on HBO and just started yelling, "Unheard of!" Thought, George, you are not kidding. And then to see him go and win titles at 160, 168, 175, 200 and heavyweight. And to win legitimate titles against legitimate fighters doing it, people can trash John Ruiz all they want.
Hey, Ruiz was a beast in it.
Ruiz, he wasn't a bad fighter.
No.
You know, he was never the big, great, entertaining fighter that everyone wants to see as a heavyweight. And he was a workhorse. He was never a big puncher. And I think what hurt him most is that most people never got the image of David Tua knocking him out in 18 seconds out of their head, so they never took him seriously. But he wasn't bad, and he hung in. And Roy Jones moved up and just positively embarrassed him. And speaking of being embarrassed, Saddam Ali stepped into the ring last Saturday night on HBO after the Lomachenko fight was over, and he fought Jaime Munguia. And you want to talk about a fight that did not go Ali's way. Justin, we were talking on Facebook right as that fight was about to start, and you asked me, and you can verify this, you asked me what I thought, and I said, I think Munguia is going to knock him out because I think he's just too tall, he's too big. What I didn't think is that he was going to go out and have Ali laying on his face 50 seconds into the fight. That was a fight, and this is an important point because of everything that's happened in this month in boxing. Munguia was supposed to be an opponent for Gennady Golovkin, and the Nevada State Athletic Commission said no. They would not let him fight. He's got a huge knockout percentage. He's undefeated. He's got height. He's got timing.
That's government for you.
Thank you. If they knew anything about the fighter they were approving or rejecting, that's a fight they should have allowed. So instead, he goes over and says, okay, I'll fight Saddam Ali. And before we go any further, he is a legitimate middleweight in power, in size, everything. Saddam Ali, I know he won that WBO World Championship at 154 against Miguel Cotto. That doesn't make him a legitimate junior middleweight any more than Miguel Cotto was a legitimate junior middleweight at that point. But Ali said, you know what? I'll fight this guy. So even though I'm not a Saddam Ali fan, I'll give him credit because he stepped up and took the fight. Unfortunately, that's where the props end because Munguia went out and wrecked him in 4 rounds. Just give me a little overview of what you thought of that fight because we watched it live.
Yeah, I mean, I know Ali was older, but it was like a man fighting a kid. It was bad, yeah. I mean, Ali came out and you could tell he looked like he was going to try to box him at first, and then he felt the power and he was like, oh, fuck,
that first left hook, when you saw it rock him, you thought, okay, this guy's pop is legitimate. There's no denying it now. But once you got into the second round and Ali had a minute to kind of clear his head and maybe make a little bit of an adjustment, 30 seconds into the second round, you realized this fight's over now because Ali's getting hurt literally every time he gets touched. And that's what changed the fight.
Yeah, It was bad. I can't believe they let it go on that long. Because, yeah, like you said, every time he touched him, he was hurting him. And it wasn't like just a shock. Like how when Kelly Pavlik hit Sergio Martinez, you could tell Martinez was feeling the punches. It was like, oh, shit. Oh, shit. Fuck. And then he would eventually go down. Sorry, I know my vocabulary is not very deep.
Perfect.
It was...
But you know what? He did. I'll give him credit. Bad. He kept getting up. And if it was up to him, he would have kept fighting all night. But that was another fight that's another prime example. And I hate this. We've had this discussion in the past. I hate when you have corners who try to be more brave than their fighter. And you had a corner that was trying to be more brave than their fighter. You've seen me stop fights, Justin. You've seen me do that in the corner. This was a corner that was trying to be too brave, a referee that wanted to stop the fight and let the corner and the doctor get in the way and not let him do it. And he ended up going out in the fourth round, and it didn't go a minute into the fourth round, but he ended up eating a bunch more shots and going down again, and it was completely unnecessary. And quite honestly, I think the New York Commission needs to review some things. Did they learn nothing from what happened to Magomed Abdusalamov a few years ago? Because we were talking as that fight was going on live that night, and we were saying 5 and 6 rounds into the fight, are you going to stop this thing or not? I know he's answering back, but he's getting hit flush every time he throws a shot. And what happens is now he's confined to a bed for the rest of his life. And he'll likely never walk again. It's amazing what they allowed. And then all the brash, big talk about all the things they're going to change. What actually changed? Apparently nothing, because they didn't learn anything from it, or else they would have stopped that fight after 2 rounds.
I agree.
Yeah, and they didn't only ruin one career that night, they ruined 2.
Yes, they did.
Because Mike Perez was never the same after that night either.
No, the next time, Mike didn't fight again for a while. And when he got in there was nothing on the gas pedal. He was staying in third gear the entire time. Yeah,
he fought Takam next, didn't he? Wasn't it? He fought Carlos Takam.
That's right.
And fought to like a draw or like a real close decision.
And it was a horrible fight. Just a terrible fight.
It was not the Mike Perez that just put a man in a hospital bed, that's for sure.
No, it wasn't.
And then he goes on to fight Povektin, and it was just awful. But let me get back to the fight we were talking about real quick. ADD kicking in again.
It happens.
The corner, I mean, they should be smart enough. You have a guy that got stopped by Jesse Vargas. I mean, I'm not dissing Jesse Vargas, but Jesse Vargas is not a puncher at 147.
He's no more of a puncher at 47 than Mike Perez was against Abdusalamov, and that's what the problem was in that fight. And I did want to make this point. Magomed Abdusalamov probably wouldn't have gotten hurt if Mike Perez was a puncher that could hit like Lennox Lewis or one of the Klitschko's, because it would have been done in 2 or 3 rounds. But he ate 10 rounds of it. And that's why when you have a fight like this and someone's getting hit not only flush, but they're getting hit repeatedly by someone who can legitimately knock almost anyone out, you cannot let that go on round after round. And like you said, this guy got stopped by someone who's not a puncher, and that was a bad knockout when Jesse knocked him out. That was a clean KO. And now you're just going to sit here and let it happen again against a guy that you know is bigger and has a knockout ratio that big. Yeah, it was nuts. You could tell the ref was looking for it when he stopped it. He was just waiting for Ali to give him an excuse, and he jumped, and he should have did it a round earlier. But Gary Rosado wanted to stop it. He wanted to stop it at the 3rd round, and they wouldn't let him do it. And as soon as that first series of shots landed, by the time Ali hit the ground, he was already waving it off. But he wanted it stopped earlier, and I think it's gonna bother him, because he's a good official. It's gonna bother him that he didn't stick up a little harder and not stop that after 3. Quite honestly, I think we're lucky as a sport that it didn't end up worse than it did, because that could have been terrible. Yeah, that could have been really bad. We're very lucky Steve Smoger wasn't refereeing. If Steve Smoger would have been the referee, the fight would still be happening now, and it's been 6 days. Somebody could be dead, and he's standing over top of him going, "You feel all right? Can you continue? Step toward me." That's all he does. And I love Steve Smoger because we've gotten great fights out of it, but, that happens. So before we go to the next segment, what do you think about a potential Triple G Jaime Munguia fight? Steve, you first.
I'm interested to see how Munguia would come at him if he's going to be as aggressive, because he seems like he's a younger, brash, really pushy type fighter like that. But then again, watching some of the shots he was hitting Ali with, he was extremely aggressive, but his hands were very low, very open for counter check lefts.
Absolutely.
That the Russian style overhand right. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of interested to see who's going to take the step back.
Well, he counted so much, especially against Saddam, because Saddam's not a big guy, even at 47.
No.
He counted so much on that height. He wasn't really all that concerned. It didn't seem like about anything coming back.
He was going to buzzsaw him. That's what he was going to do.
Well, everything was 2 or 3 inches short.
Yeah.
I think Ali, we talked about this during the fight, Justin. He kept trying to throw that big left hook and catch him coming in, and he hit him with 2 or 3 of them, and it had no effect, and that's when he pretty well knew he was done. But the fact that it was that open for something like that to happen reveals a little bit of a weakness, and it shows you there's something there that can be capitalized on. And I can assure you, Golovkin is not the one that you want to teach you that you have a defensive liability to getting countered by a power puncher. And believe me, the master of distance, the 2 best fighters I've seen managing distance in the last 15 or 20 years are Lomachenko and Golovkin. And if anybody's going to pick up on that and the timing of it with Abel Sanchez, it's Gennady Golovkin. So that could be fun. How do you see the fight?
I mean, I see it being a war because I think the kid's got legitimate power.
Oh, absolutely. And it commands respect. That kind of power commands respect.
Yeah, I mean, he stopped Paul Venezuela Jr., who's technically like a nobody, but he's been on TV a couple times. He's fought Silky Wilkie Campfort, if you guys know that name, and Tony Harrison, who was actually a big up-and-comer until Willie Nelson stopped it.
Willie destroyed his career, but you're right. He's he's a gatekeeper. He's not an A-level guy, but he's a gatekeeper. He's a step below what Antoine Eccles was for a few years.
Yeah, I mean, he fought both those guys, went the distance with both those guys, and he's a legitimate, like, Venezuela Jr.'s fought all the way up to super middleweight, and he's not a small guy, and Magua, or however the hell you were saying his name, I can't say it, but I call him Jamie Magua. But anyway,
that's all I'm going to call him now.
Jamie Magua. He stopped him in the second round. So I mean, his power is legitimate. His power is not because he was beating up a small Saddam Ali. I see it being a back and forth war, but I see him losing because you can only take so much punishment, and that kid didn't really show a very efficient defense.
No,
he was just kind of, I'm going to walk you down, I'm going to destroy you, and that's what Gennady Golovkin does. But I think Gennady Golovkin does it a little bit better because he does have that sneaky, efficient, distance-based defense that a lot of guys underestimate.
I agree, 100%. 100%.
So I see Golovkin knocking him out like round 7 in what is a very, very entertaining fight. And I hope that Golovkin and Canelo fight again so Golovkin can knock him out before G is like 45 and then Canelo's coming after him. Like, oh, hey, let's fight now.
Well, you know that's what he's waiting on.
See, I like Canelo. I like
Canelo.
Canelo.
Yeah.
But I also like Canelo as well.
Yeah, that's
he's a
good
cheater.
Too.
And I made that up, so I need this.
It was an easy out. It was an easy out to not have to take the fight. And I think that's the question on everybody's mind. Are we going to see the rematch at some point in the near future that keeps the fight relevant? Or
I'd like to see Jaime
or is that the next
Munguia fight Canelo. That's who I want to see. I want to see that.
As accurate as Canelo is, he would eat a lot of leather from Canelo early, but he's not going to taste the power as much as he would.
Winner that gets Triple
Golovkin.
G.
But you know what? They need to be fighting to decide who fights Golovkin because he's the one who's fighting anybody at this point. The problem is if we've got somebody who's willing to fight Golovkin right now, we need to make that fight because everyone's avoiding him the same way they're avoiding Lomachenko.
Don't want him.
No.
Did you see who they made? I can't say his name. Jaime Mamaga. Did you see who they made his mandatory already, though?
Who's that? I didn't check it out. Who's it? Lemieux?
Yeah, Beefy, Liam Smith.
Oh, okay.
Oh, see, now that was the fight. It was supposed to be Saddam Ali against Liam Smith, and then Liam got hurt.
I think Liam Smith
Munguia was the replacement. So it makes sense that they're going to allow that fight to be Liam Smith against Munguia, but that's not going to end any better because we saw what happened when Canelo fought him.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be an exciting fight. I don't mean to cut you off, Steve. It'll be a super duper exciting fight. Because Liam Smith, he has that, I'm going to stand in front of you, I'm going to bang your body, I'm going to bang your head. And that Munguia, I can't.
That was close. It's the closest one you did.
Yeah. I'm awful when it comes to pronouncing shit.
That shit's not easy.
But anyway, those two, that's going to be a very, very fun fight to watch because they're probably going to stand in the middle of the ring and just beat the shit out of each other.
Guaranteed. And that's a classic Mexico versus Ireland fight. That is a classic matchup for a war. And no matter how it ends up, the ones who win are the fans.
Mexico across the pond. That's what it is.
Well, and if you have a fight like that that's a war and somebody looks vulnerable, but they look like they can go in and compete and do some good things on the high level, the marketing for the fight with Golovkin or Canelo Alvarez, either one, it all takes care of itself. It's a perfect scenario for boxing, especially in that 154, 160 area for at least the next 6, 9, 12 months of business in the sport. So I'm a big fan of that. That's what's going on in boxing, but we have a new segment on the show. What is it, Teddy Bear? Finish up.
Oh, I was just going to say the winner will fight G and the loser will fight Canelo. You know, that's how it's going to go down.
So we're going to have a winners and a losers bracket, like playing intramural basketball.
I don't care if Canelo fights again. Seriously, I really don't.
Basically.
The only reason he's going to get to fight again and get all these second chances is because of the money he generates.
I know. That's that bottom line, but still, I mean, it's just... what sucks is that asterisk. You know, I mean, who knows how many times he's been on Clint to cut the weight and still be as big as he is.
Every time.
I mean?
Every time is how many times.
When you have Oscar De La Hoya basically made a statement, well, you need to fight him or I'll find somebody else who will. Talking to G about Canelo, that's when you know shit's up. Like, why are you pushing so hard for this when you didn't keep your boy clean to fight in the first place and you missed the date? It's not G's fault you missed the date. It's your boy's fault you missed the date. So why are you trying to strong-arm G into taking this fight?
They all know what he's on.
A little bit fishy there.
They all know what he's on. It's, I mean, you know, it's that level of athlete. He's scared anyway, so.
I think Fishnets needs to stay in his lane and get back in rehab.
Fishnets.
Quite honestly.
He needs to go fight Shaquille O'Neal again.
That was Mosley that fought Shaq.
No, he did too.
What, in the parking lot?
They had a celebrity boxing match way back in the day.
I'm going to need to see some documentation on that.
I'll just show you.
I'm going to need to see that because I know Mosley did on Shaq Versus.
Don't let me get one over on the great Brad Cooper.
If they did, it's something I'm not aware of, and that would be great. While Steve's looking that up, we have a new segment on the show, and it's called On the Spot. And we're going to do a nice in-depth profile on people who we have coming in as guests. Sometimes it'll be when they're a guest here already, just like you are. Well, sure enough, they sure did. How about that? September of 2009. Man, that was right before. Was that after or before Pacquiao, Justin?
I think that was after.
I think that's after. I think
when he got Marquez.
I think Pacquiao was 2008.
No, when did he get Marquez?
Yeah, because Hatton was 2009.
That's right.
He?
Yeah. Hatton was definitely 2009, and then Cotto was right at the end, right after that.
Yeah,
we are so ADHD right now. My gosh.
Yeah,
but
I was wrong on veins. By the way, it was 2004. 2000 was Jermaine Taylor, Jeff Lacey,
right?
Those guys.
So he was
Calvin
the 04
Braun.
team. So he was with Andre.
Still a while ago.
That's still a long time.
He was with Andre and Ron Siler. I had all the names right. I just had the date wrong. That's my bad.
Well, you're a youngin', so it happens. You have to get all those things lined up. Okay.
I've been punched a lot.
That's true. Our new segment is called On the Spot. We're going to do an in-depth interview with people who may already be here as guests, like Justin is tonight, or may just bring them in to do the interview on our own, or, as we found out last week, we may just ambush people and start interviewing them against their consent.
Man on the street.
Are you ready to be put on the spot?
I'm absolutely ready to be put on the spot.
Very cool. Now, you turned pro in 2009, and it's amazing that you've been fighting professionally for right in the neighborhood of 9 years, but you've been boxing for a lot longer than that. Tell me a little bit about how you started in boxing when you were growing up, and then what you were able to do as an amateur, because you had some pretty impressive amateur accomplishments.
Oh, yeah, amateur was a lot of fun. Basically, I was a super duper obese kid, and my parents split up, basically, and my mom's new boyfriend, who basically became my stepfather, Fred, he's a super fitness freak. Like, he's in his 70s now still, and like can bench over 300.
Okay, that's impressive. He's going to be the toughest. He's going to be the toughest bar fighter at the nursing home. My goodness.
Yeah. No, I don't think he's ever going to die. He's super old, and he's still... he can do stuff.
70 is not super old.
For a 300-pound bench press, pretty damn good.
Yeah.
It really
like,
is.
you would never be able to tell by looking at him. But anyway, he was super into fitness and stuff. And I mean, I was this little 11-year-old kid. I was in the high twos when I was 11. I was like probably 260, 270, like 5'4", 5'5". But anyway, he let me start working out in his basement so we could bond basically and help me get in shape, because let's face it, I probably would have been on my way to an early 20s heart attack. But because, I mean, I stress ate and stuff because my parents and all that fun stuff. But
Sure.
to each their own. Everyone copes different. So I started working out in his basement, and he had a heavy bag, and I really liked hitting it. And he happened to live not even a block away from the PAL. So he took me into the PAL, which is Police Athletic League, it's youth boxing program. And he took me into the PAL, and I just loved it. Absolutely soaked it up. 11 years old. And I got into that, and all suddenly my dad was just like, oh, yeah, we're going to get you a fight, yeah, and all this. But
well, your dad was into racing, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a dirt track, circle track guy, dirt track late models.
Right, so he was into racing. But you talked about how your stepdad was the one who kind of got you in this direction with the heavy bag and everything. Did he have any background in boxing at all, or did he just have a heavy bag for fitness purposes?
Just had heavy for fitness purposes. I mean, he liked boxing, and I think he was in the Navy way back when. He said like they put on gloves and stuff, and they would mess around, but nothing ever serious.
Sure.
But he just had a heavy bag to stay in shape and stuff, and he would hold it for me, and he's like, oh, yeah, man. He's like, you got fast hands and stuff. And we just got to talking. And, I mean, I loved boxing. And because of Rocky.
Well, of course.
Every little kid. But anyway.
Every little kid that's born in the 90s loves a movie made in 1976.
Hey, I mean.
Rocky's timeless. I agree with you 100%. Rocky's timeless.
But, yeah, so I got into the PAL through him. And then once I got into the PAL, my dad was suddenly like, oh, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And Tim, I had zero athletic ability whatsoever. I was not athletic at all. And Tim, the head coach at the PAL,
right,
seen that, but he's seen that I was working my ass off. Like, I wanted this more than I had ever wanted anything in my life. But my dad wants to brag to his friends, Tim, we need to get him a fight. He's ready to fight. He's been in here 5 months. He's ready to fight. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But there's not any other 11-year-old kids that are my weight.
Right.
So we lie about my age. We say I'm 13. I fight a 15-year-old that we didn't know at the time, who happened to be ranked nationally. I mean, he wasn't super duper good or anything, but I mean, he had been to the national tournament stuff. His name was Josh Baker. I believe Baker was his last name.
And you were how old at this point? You were 11?
I was 11 and he was 15, but we said I was 13 so I could take the fight.
Right.
I fought him in East Liverpool. Johnny, the Macho Midget Bailey, was my referee.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And basically this kid just comes out, steamrolls me. Like, I go down in the first 15 seconds. Of course, I get up. I've never had any quit in me. I go down like 20 seconds later. All he's doing is he's barreling at me with 1-2s, but I wasn't ready, and I knew I wasn't ready. And the only person that didn't think I wasn't ready is my dad.
Right.
And, I mean, because Tim knew I wasn't ready. I go down 3 times in the first round, and I lose. And then after that, like, Dad's, you don't need to box anymore, all this. And Tim takes me aside, and he's like, I know you love this. Let's keep at it. Let's keep going. And eventually, long story short, what a span. All the way to 2008, I end up winning 5 national titles. I was as a junior, but in the senior division of juniors, which is 15, 16 years old, I got ranked as high as unofficially number 1. In the magazine, the USA Boxing magazine, I was number 2 for 2 years, behind Alex Rivera, then behind Nick Kisner for 1. And then as an open male, which is 17 and up, like 17 through 40, I was ranked as high as number 4. What was my amateur record? Without any walkovers or anything, I think my amateur record, I was like 85-36. And then with walkovers, the number jumps like drastically.
Sure. That's a serious amount of amateur experience, especially when you're not in Russia, when you're not in Las Vegas or Chicago or Houston, one of those amateur boxing mainstays. That's an amazing amount of experience to have, especially in your age group, because you didn't fight amateurs all the way through adulthood. You stopped when you were 18. So let's first of all, how many times you won the Ohio State Fair, which, I mean, that is the pinnacle of amateur boxing in the United States. You can have ringside worlds all you want. Winning the Ohio State Fair is the deal in amateur boxing. How many did you win it twice or 3 times?
I won it 3 times. I won it the year that it was the biggest national tournament ever. There had 900 entrants. It was the same year that the Ringside Worlds decided they were going to start.
Right.
That was the last year of like the big Ohio State Fair. They had 3 rings running, and I think it was 2004, either 2004 or 2005. Mm-hmm. But my first one was when they were the biggest. I won it then, and then I missed it the next year because I had got a job and I had to work. Right. And I was 16. I mean, my parents were like, "Oh, you're 16, get a job now." But that lasted like a month. But a month to miss that state fair, and then I won it in I won it 04, 05, and 07, and I missed 06.
That's pretty serious. What was the job that you worked for a month? I've got to know.
I worked at Longaberger's Basket Company, package pickup. I catered to like rich old ladies that bought stuff. I had to go to the different areas and pick up their stuff and bring it back to my main area. Then when they were getting ready to get on their bus, they would give me their little ticket and their little snod face and be like, "I am to get this," and I'd have to go get it for them and walk it.
And that lasted a month, and you decided you'd had enough.
Yeah, because they were making me pick work or boxing, and at that time in my life, boxing, it was it. Like, they were like, "Well, you can't have these days off. You have to work." I was like, "Well, we fight almost every weekend. I can't work these days." They were like, "Well, you need to choose." I was like, "See ya."
Well, and you're 16. You only get to be 16 once. You've got the rest of your life to work away like a slave, like Steve was saying.
But because I was 16, it limited the days I could work as well, which made the weekends like, "Oh yeah, work the weekends because you got school and all this stuff." So
you get to 2009 and you decide, I've accomplished everything I can accomplish as an amateur. I've made the very clear and simple and honest decision that I'm going to go pro. Is that exactly how it worked out?
Basically, I got tired of getting beat up for free. Yeah, when I started fighting an open men's division, I had my first open men's fight at 16 years old because the date of determination fell after my birthday. Right. But the tournament hadn't went on yet. So technically, by the time we made it to nationals, it was the first year they called the U.S. men's the Future Stars tournament. I don't know if it's still the Future Stars tournament or not.
I don't know if it is or not.
But that's when it was, and I had my first open men's fight then, and I fought a 6'5", 340-pound giant in Cincinnati named Charles Smiley.
Oh, screw
that.
And
I realized men hit a whole lot harder than children do.
Well, it was just especially when you're not getting paid for it.
Yeah, it was bad. And then so I fought tournament after tournament, fight after fight as an open male. And eventually, I turned 18, and I had a couple more fights after I was 18, but I fought a guy named Tommy Poe. He only had 2 amateur boxing matches, but he was an MMA guy, because at that time, MMA was like the hot thing. It was rising like crazy. And, I mean, he was just built. He was probably 30 years old. And we went to war. You could still fight 4-round fights. It was 4 2-minute rounds. Okay. We were a main event on a card. And I mean, we went to war for 4 rounds, and we got to talking afterwards. He's like, "Man," I just wanted to get 3 fights. I'm going pro. I was like, "You're going pro?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I got a guy that he'll pay me $1,000 for my first 4-round fight. And if I keep winning," he said, "he'll keep paying me more, and then we'll make some big money together." I was like, "Well, shit, I need to do that." And that's basically, it sparked from there. I was getting hit by these monsters for free. We were waiting around for the Olympics, but I mean,
yeah, it doesn't.
Decided not to.
Yeah, but you know as well as I do that amateur boxing is more corrupt than professional boxing is. Yeah. And if you're not from the West Coast, you can forget being on the Olympic team unless you literally go in and knock everyone out. And it's been that way for quite a few years. So you decide to go pro. You've got your pro debut in August of 2009 against Paul Zales. Tell me a little bit about what you felt like going into that first fight.
I mean, I felt good. I managed to get fat before the fight, and then Tim comes to me and he says, "You can't be that big going into this fight. I want you to lose 30 pounds." So I lose 30 pounds in a month prior to that fight. I weighed in at 259, which I think is still like one of my lowest. You
lost 30 pounds in a month?
Oh, that's nothing for me. I can fluctuate weight like nobody's business. But yeah, I lost 30 pounds in a month.
Well, that's outrageous. But you went in, took the fight. That was in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, took the fight. We thought he was going to be this big wild man. We looked him up. We've seen some of his amateur fights. He was 1-0, and just the reality of the pro game hit me like. I don't know, like a big old cock, I guess, just slapped me right across the face. And
so a nice hoagie slap right on the forehead.
Yeah, basically, yeah. He just mushroom stamp. But yeah, it was bad. He hit hard. The gloves were smaller, so you felt more of it. There's no headgear. That took some adjusting because Tim wouldn't let us spar without headgear. Mm-hmm. So that took a lot of adjusting. And
Steve hates headgear. Steve just is repulsed by the concept of it.
Once you get used to no headgear, it is great. It's wonderful. You have more peripherals. You can do slicker things with your head. Like I headbutt people a lot, and they don't even realize I'm headbutting them. But without headgear, it's a completely different ball game. And people that were at that debut to this day tell me that I was the much better boxer. And I landed a lot of sneaky shots, and I did a lot of stuff that they could tell there was skill there. I was a child fighting a full-grown man.
Sure.
And I didn't understand it at the time. Everybody's like, "Well, you don't have your man strength yet." I was like, "I'm 18. I've been doing this since I was 11 years old. What do you mean I don't have my man strength? I know what I'm doing." But in reality, I didn't really know what I was doing, because if I was smart, I would have waited. I wouldn't have fought a guy of that stature. I would have fought somebody softer as my debut.
Well, the government says that you're an adult, so obviously I'm ready to go in and fight grown people. The government says I'm 18, so I'm an adult, so I must be an adult. It works that way. So, okay, that one didn't go your way. The first time that I ever encountered you was the first fight that you had with Kevin Franklin in Morgantown in August of 2011. And looking back, considering how few fights you had, I can't believe they sanctioned that to be a 6-round fight, but they did. Kevin ended up dropping you a couple of times in that fight. I'd never met you, never seen you, and I came away that night incredibly impressed with the skill that you showed. But again, that was another fight that even 2 years later, after your debut, I could still tell your youth was still present. You didn't have your man strength yet, but you showed a lot more than I expected from someone that supposedly had the record that you had coming into the fight, because you were 0-3 or 0-4 coming into that fight. But I remember that fight incredibly well. Then we go into a fight in January of 2012, and you fought Jeremiah Williams, who at that point was winless, and you fought him in Elizabeth, Indiana at a casino. And that was the first time that you acquainted yourself with getting robbed in professional boxing. Tell me about that fight with Jeremiah.
It was bad. Took the fight semi-short notice for Kurt Allen. Super good guy. One of the best guys I've met in boxing yet.
He boxed until he was about 50, didn't he? 50 or 55?
He was 49, I think, that night when he fought Butterbean.
Yes. And he fought after that in Indiana. He fought a couple of times after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's a real good dude, real nice guy. But we went into the fight. Jeremiah was 0-8 at the time. We knew he was durable. He had fought some good guys. This was my first time with Joey only in my corner.
Oh, I didn't know that Tim wasn't with you that night.
No, Tim wasn't with me. It was me and Joey.
Okay.
And me and Tim we've always been cool, but we'd split ways. I wasn't working out with him anymore. I had opened Hands of Stone, which was my own boxing gym.
Right.
And I taught Joey how to be a corner, and he was in the corner when I fought Kevin the first time we ever met.
Right.
But he was just a second. So this was his first official go. So me and him, we knew it was a winnable fight. We knew the guy was durable. Our plan was to box, and that's what we did. And I go out in the first round. I still remember it pretty vivid. I land a double jab on his forehead because he has like this weird shell defense, kind of like a bad, big, winky right. And I landed 2 on the top of his forehead, right over top of his gloves, because he tried to shell up. And then he, like, when I knocked his head back, it raised his elbows up, and I landed a right hand right to his gut. And I remember thinking, man, I can win this fight. This is a very winnable fight.
Sure.
And he touched me maybe twice clean in that entire round. I probably only landed like maybe 10 or 12 clean shots myself, but it was a lot more effective than what he was landing. And sit down, Joey's going crazy in the corner. Oh, yeah, man, we can win this. We're going to whoop this motherfucker. I'm like, Joey, take out my mouthpiece. He takes out my mouthpiece, and then he just continues, yeah, we got it. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep pressuring him, this, that, and the other. And puts my mouthpiece back in. It has a giant glob of Vaseline on it.
Oh, God. Joey, you're better than that.
I bite down on it. Yeah, we joke around about it all the time. Bite down on it nice and squishy. But basically go out, and rounds 2, 3, and 4 are more of the same, except he's clinching me a lot more anytime I get close, and I'm working my free hand in the clinch because the ref wasn't breaking it up. So I'm just hitting him with one arm. I'm standing in the middle of my room, like throwing punches right now. You guys can't see it. So I'm working my free arm the entire time we're clinched and stuff, and I just outwork him. He lands maybe 12 punches clean the entire fight, and I lose a majority decision.
That was just.
And I was like, oh man, that's just awful. Everyone came up to me after the fight. They were like, oh, you did so much better. He's like, you won that fight. You got robbed. This, that, and the other. And I mean, it just took a downward spiral from there.
See, already at this point, I didn't know you that well. I knew who you were. I remembered you from whenever you fought Kevin the first time. But it's so evident, at least looking back, how different things could have been for you had you been managed correctly from the beginning. And you really never had that opportunity, and that didn't happen even for a short period of time until much later down the road. But we encountered each other again a little later that year. You fought Kevin Franklin again in Logan, which was a really interesting place for that fight to take place. And then you fought John Hill, and you gave Kevin a seriously tough fight in that rematch. I thought it was a closer fight the second time than it was the first. The fight with John, he knocked you down in the first round, but it was nip and tuck the whole way, that fight too. And I worked in Kevin's corner for the second fight. I worked in John's corner for that fight, working against you because we didn't really know each other at that point. And seeing the growth that you had just being a pro, and there's a meaning whenever you say that somebody's being a pro in this sport, the growth that you showed just coming into those fights was so apparent. And I knew that you had something coming just around the corner if you could get the right break. And that break came about a month later because you went to Madison and fought a joker named Jason Harbin and got your first win. What do you remember most about that first win against Harbin? I
remember I knocked him down. He got up, called me a pussy, said he was ready to fight, and quit.
That's true. Didn't it look like he slipped on the third knockdown or something? And it was just... or there weren't three knockdowns. You only knocked him down once, and then he got up and said something and then turned around and walked away.
Yeah, I mean, I was jacked. We come out. I can tell you the whole fight. It only lasted about a minute. Come out.
He's not kidding.
I don't doubt this.
No, I jab high. I throw a right hand to the body, which is my favorite punch in the world. 2 straight downstairs. I can land it almost whenever I want. I might eat a left hook sometimes, but I can land it whenever I want. And I do that, boom, and then he flurries on me like this weird tough man flurry. And I shell up, and I walk through it, and I decide, all right, we're going to fight now. And I walk him to the ropes. I land a right hand. I don't know if it's balance or what, but if you look at it, he goes down very weirdly.
It was an awkward knockdown from the feet up. It just looked weird.
Yeah, like he claims it was a push, but I never pushed him. Like you can tell in the video, it wasn't a push, it was a punch.
You pushed him with your fist.
Yeah, with my fist in his face, yeah. And he went down, and I was jacked. I mean, it was my first knockdown. I was like, yeah, so I let out a yell, like, yeah, and I like do a little circle, and then I run to the neutral corner because I'm excited.
Well, you didn't. Let's be honest. You didn't run. You jogged.
Yeah, I jogged. I don't run.
I've never seen you sprint ever. Not once. No, the house could be on fire, and you're jogging out.
Yeah, come on, kids. But no. Basically, he went down. It was weird. He got up, and he's yelling at me in the neutral corner, not even paying attention to the referee. He's like, "Come on, puss! Come on, puss!" And they walk him over to the corner to get his mouthpiece back in because his mouthpiece came out on the way down, and they wave it off. He quit in the corner and wouldn't make eye contact with me. Wouldn't even stay in the ring while I got my hand raised. He just stormed out and left.
You curd him up,
and it was.
And he never fought again. He never fought again.
No, never fought again.
Well, I can see why, because he really didn't even fight that night. But you know what? He stepped in there, he ate some leather, and you got to win. We're not going to cover every fight. We're just going to hit some of your key ones before we hit the rapid fire questions.
I bet you guys the first time.
Gotcha.
You fought Jermaine Walker and dropped a 6-round split decision, a fight that you changed your strategy about halfway through or after a couple of rounds. But I didn't corner that one with you, but I thought at worst that was a draw. I thought you fought really, really well that night. And then you go in and get your second professional win. And that was the night that we started working together. And I'll tell a little bit about how that one started. At that point, our friend Chase Hill was still doing a lot of stuff in boxing. And he had, what was it? Was it called the Lights Out Boxing Gym in Madison? Is that what he called that thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he called it Lights Out.
So he had the Lights Out Boxing Gym in Madison and called everybody to come in. He had you under contract at that point and was going to try to help you build your record up a little bit. So he called everybody to come down and spar. And you drove down from Zanesville, and I got to see you there because I brought Dave down, and we all worked together because there were a few people fighting on that show coming up because I had Jason Smith fighting that night. And who else? I had John Hill fighting against Greg Maynard that night.
That was
coming up. That was the craziest 1-round fight I've ever seen in my life, and I was in the corner for it. But I saw you and said hello and talked to you for a minute. And you asked me who I was cornering, and I told you, and you said, "Oh, good." You asked me if I was working with Deskins, and I said no. And you said, "Oh, good. It'll be nice to finally have a fight in West Virginia, and you're not in the other corner coaching against me." And I said, "Well, if you need me in the corner, I'll be more than happy to corner for you." And you said that you would like that. So our first fight together was you against then undefeated 1-0 Matt Deskins. And you went in and did something to Matt Deskins that essentially ruined his reputation as a professional fighter in the greater Boone County, Logan area in West Virginia, because you beat him to a point that you collapsed one of his lungs with your body attack and ended up brutalizing him over a fight that lasted 3 rounds, but it must have felt like 10. And Matt's a great dude, but that fight went terribly wrong from the very beginning. And after the first round, you came back to the corner and I said, keep attacking his body, look for uppercuts when they're there, and you're going to chop him down and knock him out. And that is still one of the most impressive performances of your career, Justin.
I mean, they forced me to get in shape. Matt said, I'm not fighting you unless you're 260 pounds. And I was like 290. And I was like, well, shit, if you want me to get in shape, I will get in shape and fight you. And that's what I did.
Well, the best way to get you angry is to tell you you're not allowed to eat.
Oh, yeah, that was bad. And then I was pissed off at him after the fight, too. Well, I was really mad because I fasted like a day before the fight because I was right there. I was like at 262 the day before the fight, so I didn't eat for like a day and a half before the fight. And then after weigh-ins, me and my wife went to B-dubs, and I ate like 2 bites of a wing, and immediately I could feel myself. I was about to have the shits where my body wasn't ready. And I was so angry. I had all this food in front of me, and I couldn't eat it. I was like, oh, I'm going to fucking kill him.
I'm going to take that out on Deskins. I've had it.
Yeah, it was so bad. And then I got mad at him after the fight because he had to leave in a freaking ambulance. It's like, come on, made me hurt you. Like,
how dare you leave in an ambulance? You ought to walk out here under your own power with your half a lung and your broken ribs. Carry yourself out of here like a man, Matt Deskins.
I don't mean it like that. I mean it like, man, you made me have to fucking hurt you. Why you do it like that?
We're not being mean to Matt Deskins. Matt's such a cool dude.
Matt's a super good guy. He's talked to me plenty of times after the fight. Told me that I'm his boy's favorite fighter, and even admits it's a little bit hard to swallow that he's not his own son's favorite fighter. But it's awesome that they followed me after that. And anytime I have a fight coming up, he hits me up. He's like, "Yeah, man." He's like, "Good luck. I hope you do good."
Yeah, he's a big fan. He's become very complimentary. That's absolutely correct.
He's a warrior. I beat on him. I mean, the first round, I set a decent pace, and he matched the pace. But like I said, again, he forced me to get in shape. And I don't want to sound arrogant or anything, but when you make me get in shape, I can fucking fight. And,
absolutely.
The second round, I picked up the pace a little bit, and he kind of stayed where he was at. And you could tell by the end of the second, he was gassed really bad.
Right.
And then I forget exactly what was said in the corner between you and Chris, but I remember it was something along the lines of like, we're there, we can win this, just keep doing what you're doing. But a switch, and you can see it on the tape, a switch in my mind flips. It's like, all right, it's time to hit the fucking gas.
It was kill mode.
We're going to do it.
You went into kill mode.
We're going to do it now. Yeah. And I landed a long range right uppercut from like, I think in like the first 5 or 10 seconds of the third round. And then just from then on, it's just an onslaught.
I'm sorry, it wasn't kill mode. It's die mode because you start yelling die with every punch you land. I love that.
Yeah, die mode.
We've only got 2 or 3 more fights that I really want to cover. You fought Mike Shepard. You fought Josh Tufty. Both of those were fights where you stepped back. You showed a lot of skill. Mike is just
Mike Shepard.
He's Mike Shepard, and he's a power punching monster. And Josh Tufty is a seriously underrated, skilled heavyweight. If he had more power than he does, it's really remarkable to think of what he could do in the heavyweight division, but he just never really had the pop to hang in. So we go to 2013, and I get a phone call from Steve Neal from Signal 12 Gym in Fayetteville here in southern West Virginia, and he's doing a show here in the southern part of the state, and they were wanting to match up Jonah Koger with Adam Oakes, and they get a couple of weeks out from the fight, and Adam Oakes just stops answering the phone, won't sign a contract, won't talk to anybody. And he calls me with a few days before the event and says, do you have anybody that'll fight Jonah Koger fairly cheap and will come down here and actually fight? And I thought, hey, that's a fight. We can get us a W. Because at this point, I was cornering you for quite a few fights at this point.
Yeah.
And you came in, and I said, he'll fight him for expense money for the most part. And that was music to Steve's ears. He's, oh yeah, we're going to go do this. So you come down to fight Jonah Koger on short notice. Jonah's a lefty, which is not something you particularly like to see at that point. And we worked on a game plan for a couple of days, really drilled it before the fight. You come out, knock Jonah down once, get a standing 8 count on him, beat him all over the ring. I don't know if he's fought again since then, and you get a big win. And that probably is my favorite fight that you and I have had together in the years that we've been doing this. Fast forward 12 days later, and you get to encounter George Euler in Madison. And Justin, do you know who was in the corner for George Euler that night, by the way?
No, I don't remember.
Steve, who was it?
It was me.
Was it?
Yeah.
Nice.
That was before I knew
awesome.
Steve. I didn't know Steve then.
No.
So, yeah, he was in the other corner that night. And
I did not know that.
I didn't let him sit down on his stool at the end of the first round. I was like, you didn't do shit. You have to stand. And he stood.
Steve Randolph,
awesome.
The master motivator. So I remember you said, you told me you get to pick the entrance music for this fight. So we came out to the ring to play that funky music, White Boy, and by White Cherry, I think is the name of that band or something.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So we came out to the ring. We win a 4-round decision. The memory of that fight is about 30 seconds left in the fight. You all are tied up on the ropes directly over our corner, and you, in the middle of a clinch, get in George Euler's ear and say, "Don't worry, I'm tired too." Which makes me and James Armstrong lose our minds laughing. James is the ring announcer for all of the Black Eye Promotions fights. The clinch breaks, and then you go into die mode and land about 14 unanswered shots on the ropes and knock him down, and then the bell rings just as he gets up, and you win a 4-round decision. We're not going to get into the Travis Clark foul fest in Weirton. We've already talked about the Sean Conway foolishness. That video, by the way, is posted on the episode page from episode 9.
Was that the one in Pennsylvania?
That's the Greg Serb incident. The entire fight video is posted on the page for episode 9, so anybody that wants to see that can see it. We had the Justin Howes fight, which you took on short notice and competed very, very well. We're going to talk just for a second, how good did it feel to score that one-punch classic knockout over Pearl Dotson, and that'll be the last fight.
Oh, you want where you Marquez him.
The one where you murdered him? Yeah, that'd be the one.
Marquez.
And we're going to put the highlight of that one on the episode page, too, for this episode, because I'm not going to put the whole fight up. I'm just going to put Jerry Davis's highlight clip on it, and it'll become immediately apparent why I'm putting Jerry Davis's highlight on it, because Jerry's reaction is fantastic.
Yes, it will.
So you came into that fight. I didn't get to be there, but I called you in the locker room for that fight because I was traveling. And I called you and we talked about a couple of things, and I said, set him up and counter him and look for that overhand right, and you're going to blast him. I didn't think you would do that to him. But we talked about the game plan
I would do that to him.
Well, we spent 4 weeks talking about game plan for that fight and foot placement and trying to get him set up and breaking his rhythm. But we talked about that right hand, and then I talked to you before the fight that night, and then I get a call from Dave, and he tells me, I still don't think Pearl's awake yet. And I thought, did he really knock him out that bad? Then you send me the video of what you did. How did you set up that shot? And how did you feel whenever you landed it and realized he wasn't getting up? This is a guy that had a record at that point. He was what, 8-3, 8-3-1.
He was 9-4.
Okay.
Yeah, he was 9-4 at the time, coming off a first round stoppage over that JJ Armstrong guy.
See, that's right, because he came back and fought Keith Barr, and that went poorly in a round, and then had that fight with JJ Stewart, the MMA guy from Virginia, and stopped him in Huntington, and then he fought you, and that was a fight that was supposed to happen after the Sean Conway fight, but you broke your hand on Sean's head. So all this comes down the pike, and you come out for that second round. What did you see in relation to what we had talked about, and how did you pull it off? And then how did you feel whenever he went down on his face?
I mean, I heard him at the very end of the first round. I landed an overhand right. I managed to slip out to my right a little bit, and I just caught him right on top of the forehead with the right hand. And he was hurt. And at the time, I didn't understand how hurt he was, but watching the video, you can tell that he never recovers going into the second round. But no, coming into the second round, I set a nice steady rhythm. I was planning on having a 6-round freaking grueling fight, because me and Pearl, we're not very different when it comes to like style wise. He's he's more of a plotter than I am. I'm a mover for a big guy. But
he has that Steve Dotson technique. I mean, he's a pretty technically sound guy, but he wasn't a big puncher. He was just somebody that was going to sit there a lot more than you were. You have more active feet than he did, and that's what set up a lot of stuff that happened in those 2 rounds.
Yeah, and that's what I mean by we're very similar. Neither one of us were big punchers. I don't consider myself a big puncher at all, especially for a heavyweight.
Well, you've got those little T-Rex arms.
Yeah, I know. Can't generate much inertia or velocity, or I don't know, some scientific term.
It's force equals mass times acceleration.
Is velocity, right?
Yeah, I mean we'll edit that part out so I don't sound like an idiot, right?
I'll bleep it or
he's going to turn the volume up. Actually,
yeah, just censor it, like dub over some scientist talking.
I can do that.
No, anyway, yeah, we come out for that second round, and yeah, I know ADD's taking over again. We come out for that second round, and I set a nice steady rhythm. I'm not trying to punch myself out. I'm planning on a 6-round fight. I'm not planning on an early knockout, and he's firing a jab downstairs, and he's leaving himself open up top. And so I did exactly what we were talking about, and I come over top with the right hand, and it shakes him a little bit. And I'm catching angles, like I'm skating out left, skating out right, just seeing what's there. And then I heard him about a minute into the round. I actually heard him with the right hand, and I press him back into the ropes, and I flurry on him, boom, boom, boom. Then I take a step out, and I throw a leaping left hook. And he blocks it also. I take a couple steps back and let him walk off the ropes. Well, as soon as he walks off the ropes, I see him throwing a lazy jab. He's throwing it from his belly. So without even thinking, I just throw a right hand, and it lands on that temple. And I'm getting ready to throw another punch. Like, if you watch the video, you see me rushing forward. And he falls like a freaking tree. Boom.
He really did.
And it was surreal. Awful. I didn't know what was happening at first. I was like, what the hell just happened? And then I realized I just knocked somebody out. And I was like, yeah, I just knocked somebody out. And then I was like, shit, I like Pearl. And because me and Pearl, we've always talked. We've always been cool. So it was kind of like one of those things, what's going on? Fuck yeah, I just knocked somebody out. Oh shit, I like that guy. And
that's really what happened.
Yeah, all in a span of like 5 seconds. So yeah, I got the win. I'm like, fuck yeah, I got this win. But at the same time, I'm like, shit, I hope Pearl's okay. And on the video, it looks like I knock him out and just leave. But in reality, I'm getting out of the ring to go over to the side where his head's at, and I'm apologizing to his wife.
No, the video does not look like you're leaving. The video looks like you are racing to his side to check on him. And then Dave comes over and he's like, let the doctors work on him because you just iced him in front of his hometown, which you did. And yeah, his wife, as soon as he went down, you can see her kind of step around to the other side of the ring and yell at him to get up. And after a couple of times realizes, yeah, he's not getting up. And
no,
I can't believe he didn't fight. Did he fight anymore after that?
That was his last fight, wasn't
I think that was the last one.
Yeah, he retired.
Yeah, because he fought, well, there was one more in the middle of there. Right Travis before he Clark. Fought you, he fought Travis Clark, and he got hit with one left hook, and his eye puffed up like he had a throw pillow inserted underneath it, and they stopped it after a round, and then you ended his career. That was terrible.
That fight's why I didn't think I was going to stop Pearl, because Travis Clark, he can punch pretty hard with his forearms, his fists, his elbows, and his head. He hits hard with all of them.
Oh, yeah. And it doesn't matter where either. Head, body.
Is that the Marine?
Genitals.
Travis Clark?
Travis is the bald dude.
He's the dick with tattoos.
Covered in tattoos all over the place. And now he does the Tough Man video for Jerry.
Yeah, douche.
But that was a huge win for you. It got you a bunch of points on BoxRec, and it was a big win over a guy with a really good record. And it's something that I think is repeatable as soon as we can get you moving again career-wise, because it's time to get you back in there. Are you ready for a few rapid-fire questions?
Go for it.
All right, just off the cuff, let's see what you got. Since your debut in 2009, what has changed the most for you in boxing?
I've gotten extremely fat.
That's your biggest change.
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten a lot better at dealing with pressure, and my style has changed drastically. You watch that first fight with Paul Zalis, I'm real light on my feet. I move, I punch a lot of wasted movements, a lot of wasted energy. I was still fighting like an amateur. Right. If you watch me fight now, you're like, holy shit, this guy's lazy. Is he going to do anything? But really what I'm doing is I'm waiting for my opportunity to punch without wasting any energy. So, yeah, I would probably say my style. Get the comedy out of the way, my style's changed.
Well, we can accept both.
Yeah.
What's been your proudest accomplishment? You've done a ton of the stuff in the amateurs. What's been your proudest accomplishment as a pro?
As a pro, probably the Joshua Tufte fight. I mean, it's not really an accomplishment. I lost, but he told me for 2 rounds I was the best fighter that he ever faced, and I had the entire crowd. Pat Nelson was the announcer for that fight. Don't ask me why, but he announced my record. I was 2-12 going into that fight, and he announced me as the man with literally nothing to lose with a record of 2-12.
That's Pat Nelson. And, that's Pat Nelson.
And he did that.
Good
and the whole place laughed at me. Ha ha, 2-12. Like, the people sitting beside my wife and stuff were calling me teabag. This was before the fight started, though. And she said they got up and left like midway through the second round.
Wow. Because
she was wearing her teddy bear shirt and stuff, and they kind of seen that, and they seen that I could actually fight.
Sure.
And just after that fight, everybody come up to me, oh man, that was a great fight. That was awesome. You're a hell of a fighter and all this. And Josh actually came to me after the fight, and he was like, man, he was like, I do not know how you are 2-12. He was like, but I was worried for those first 2 rounds. And I was like, yeah, I was like, I'm not sure who was fighting for me, but I had a lot of fun. And because literally that fight, I worked a half a day. It was on a Friday. I worked a half a day and then drove to Wheeling. Like, I got off work, picked up my wife, and drove to Wheeling and took my work boots off, took my pants off, pulled my trunks on, got my hands wrapped, and fought the current, at that time, NABF heavyweight champion, and just gave him the fight of his life. It was the fight of my life. Probably my best performance as a professional.
Well,
it was just so much fun.
For me, the best performance was the one that came right after that, and that was the Jonah Koger fight, because it was against a lefty that you didn't know on short notice. Lefties automatically got in your head. You were coming off the Tufte fight, and the confidence was there from that. And then you went in and let it out in that fight and started a 2-fight win streak. You went 2-2 in a 4-fight span, but you look at who you fought and how you did. It was tremendous for you, and that's one that's always stood out for me, but I think it was building off of that Tufte fight. What's been the biggest letdown for you as a pro?
The biggest letdown, this is an easy one. That would have to be the Conway fight.
Absolutely. And that because was highway robbery.
I thought I pushed through that fight with a broken hand. I thought I won. I was landing body shots. I was landing jabs. I was missing my right hands on purpose. I will not deny that. Because every time I connected, even on accident, it hurt like a son of a bitch. But
it was setting up the hook, though.
Through. Yeah, I thought I pushed through, and I thought I won that fight. And then to have the first card announced, 40-36, Novaria, and then this little fucking midget comes out of nowhere, steals the cards, runs off to some fucking corner, comes back, we made a mistake. And then I lose the next two cards, 39-37. I mean, I was like, what the fuck just happened?
That was... I've been in this stuff a long time, and I've never seen anything quite like that before in person, and hope I never do again, but you can thank Greg Serb for that. What fight have you had that you didn't expect to be as tough and as difficult as it was that turned out to be that way unexpectedly so?
I mean, I go into every fight thinking it's going to be a war, but probably I didn't expect the Jermaine fight to go the way it did.
Right.
That's the first fight I actually let the crowd get in my head.
Sure.
And because I outboxed him for 2 rounds.
Oh,
and I don't
sure
think
did.
he denied that either.
No, you outboxed him, and then you went in and tried to get more aggressive, and it didn't go your way after that as much. Yeah, and you allowed it to be closer than it should have been.
Yeah, the middle of the second round, I heard the crowd booing because I was boxing him. I wasn't getting close to him. I was hitting him when I wanted to hit him. And it probably was. It was probably a boring fight to watch, and they started booing. And I heard it, and I had some of my students that I trained at my gym at the time were there watching me as well.
I remember
and
that.
It went to my head, and I was like, fuck this. And I started stalking forward, which, I don't fight moving forward.
No.
And started trying to land power shots, which, I'm not a power guy. I still thought I won the fight, but...
Oh, it was a draw at worst. I agree. Fun fact about that night, there were, I think, 13 or 14 fights on that card. I worked 5 of them that night. I won a couple of championship belts, amateurs, but my goodness, that was just... Oh, that was a very difficult night. That was a night Dave fought Jason Smith. What fight of yours, just give me the fight, would you put in the time capsule for people to watch of yours? What's your time capsule fight?
Just one fight?
Yes.
Matt Deskins.
That'd be good. What's a fight that didn't happen that you wanted to happen? You wish that it did, but it never happened.
Luke Loins.
Yeah, and you know who you can blame for that one.
Methamphetamine.
Yeah. No, the fight was supposed to happen in Williamson, and then it didn't.
Oh, no. JP's a piece of shit. We already know that, though.
Yeah.
Bingo. What's a fight
Can you tattoo a turd? I'd like to shit and then get a JP tattoo on a turd.
I'm gonna tell you a little story. This isn't defamation of character. It's just true.
It's true.
This is a fight that happened up in Parkersburg about a month and a half ago. There was an amateur fighter, and he'd fought a few times, and they're now making inspectors sign off on cotton hand wraps for tough man fighters. And explaining why that's stupid.
The wraps with
Justin's laughing. I can't even go into the reasons why that doesn't make any sense. But they're making them do that now. And this guy is just furious because he's trying to deal with this, and it's an annoyance. And he said, man, I can't stand some of the people on this commission. Some of them are just completely out of control. And I said, really? Anybody in particular? He said, yeah, that bald one that's standing out there by ringside. And I didn't say a word. And he said, yeah, I had to deal with him at the Parkersburg Tough Man. You know what I told him? I told him that it's good that he has a shaved head and he has a little point on top of it because now he looks exactly like what he is, a dick. And I said, well, I don't know who you are, sir, but I hope you win your fight tonight because that was hilarious.
That's awesome.
What fight did you take that, looking back, if you could retroactively reject it, you would say no to?
Lee McGinnis.
Oh, the world tough man champion.
Yeah, I fought him with a separated AC. I don't know if anybody knows that.
Justin,
or not,
I didn't know that. Oh, why did you do that?
I was training MMA fighters at the time, and I got judo tossed and landed on my right shoulder. And my AC was separated. It was like 8 millimeters or something like that. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when I was at the doctor,
yeah.
Yeah, when I was at the doctor, they were like, "Oh, how are you not like doubled over in pain? This is ridiculous. How'd you put your shirt on?" I was like, "I'm not a pussy."
Well, you still took him. You still took him 4 rounds, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I took him until I think it got like Tim Wheeler waved it off after a knockdown, like 2 minutes and 40 seconds into the 4th round.
Yeah, I know it was right toward the end, but yeah, I can see that. Is that one that you'd like to have another shot at, or you would just go back and retroactively say no?
I would love to fight him right now. He's like 400 pounds.
Yeah,
now.
we saw him at the Travis Clark fight in Weirton, and my goodness, he didn't even look like the same guy. I know this is narrowed down to 2. I just want to know right off the top of your head which one you would pick. What's been your most bizarre moment in boxing? Is it the Conway fight or is it the Williamson incident?
Oh, most bizarre moment? Probably. I would probably have to say the Conway fight.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. As bad as Williamson was.
Yeah. But the Conway fight, I've never seen a commissioner, a deputy, like the head shit, not like a deputy or not like someone appointed, the commissioner of the entire fucking state, jump in the ring and steal the scorecards from an announcer ever before in my life.
You cannot come up with a scenario more crooked than that. You just can't. What's the most important, outstanding goal that you still have in boxing for what you'd like to accomplish? What's the one thing that you've not done that you would really like to do?
I mean, shit. I don't know. I mean, everybody wants to win a minor title, but
sure.
I'm a realist. I'm way beyond that.
Not necessarily. There are ways for you to win a title. It's just going to be a matter of making it happen. But yeah, let's do it. But is that probably it? You'd like to win a belt?
Probably. Win a minor title or knock out Luke Loins.
You're not going to rest until you get your shot to do that.
No, because we were supposed to fight so many different times.
That's true.
Like he said no a bunch, and then I got a phone call like, "Hey, are you retired?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm super fat. I haven't been training." And they were like, "Oh, well, Luke Loins is looking for a fight." I said, "I'll take it." and of course they agreed because I said I was fat and out of shape, which I was. It wasn't a lie. I mean, hell, I do these stupid dance videos on Fridays and I'm winded by the end of them, and they're only a minute long.
Yeah, there is nothing like your Friday dance videos. I will say that. Where can people find those if they want to see them? Just on Facebook, or are they on Snapchat too? No,
just on my Facebook.
Okay.
Justin Novaria, Novaria. Check me out. Just kidding.
I got him to step in a mud hole for you, by the way. They're Luke Lyons. We went up there and hung out with them for a little while.
Yeah, we went up there and sparred with some of Corky's guys, and I think we performed extremely well in those spar sessions with Melvin and with Luke and whoever that amateur was that they had. What's the worst job that you've ever had?
The worst job I've ever had, I was a cable technician for a while.
I remember
it paid
that.
really, really good, but I would leave for work at 5:30 in the morning, and I would still be installing cable in people's houses at like 10:30 at night.
Didn't I used to help you with your timesheets for that job?
You did, yes,
I thought
because
so.
They refused to show me how to do the shit like myself.
Trying to rip you off.
Yeah,
they're trying to do.
That's what it was.
I didn't have the software needed in order to do my daily logs. So, like, I would do them when I went into work in the morning, but on my day off, they would want me to drive all the way to Columbus, which is 70 miles from my house, which is where I worked, and do my timesheet. So instead of doing that, I would save the shit and email it to myself on my phone, and then I would send that to Brad, and I would tell him all my shit, and he would fill it out for me, and then send it back to me, then I'd email it to my boss.
I had forgotten about that until you just mentioned that. What's your dream job? You could have any dream job. What is it?
Man, I don't know if I should answer it serious or if I should be comedic about it, because I would love to be a fluffer that gets like the girls wet for porn.
That's right.
But
I'd do that.
But I would realistically, because I have a wife and she would like cut my dick off, what little bit I have, if I ever took a job as a fluffer. So I really, 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 really enjoy fabricating metal trim for like metal roofing and stuff. I've had that job twice in my life, and both times the companies have went under, but that's been my favorite job in the world. So if I had to pick, I would probably do that again.
That's cool. What was your favorite part of childhood?
My favorite part of childhood was I had two. the racetrack. I loved going to the races with my dad. And then, like, from early adolescence to, like, late teen, like when me and my wife started dating around 16, was the skating rink. And that's probably why I'm so agile as well, because I skated.
Yeah, that's your version of Lomachenko and the traditional Russian dance. That's pretty cool. If you could live inside of any one movie, which one would you live in?
Oh, damn it. I would probably any one movie. See, there's so many different ones. I'm gonna have to shoot off top. I just seen Ready Player One. I feel like that'd be super neat.
That's a good movie.
That's a good pick. That's a great book and a good movie. What's something that people think about you that isn't true?
A lot of people, like, just looking at me, assume I'm an asshole. I mean, I am to a point, but like they just think they think I'm mean. I'm blunt. I'm not an asshole. I'll tell you how I feel.
You are the least mean and angry person I have ever known.
See, and people, they look at me and they're like, man, I don't want to fuck with that guy. But really, I'm not like that.
No,
so
you're docile.
Probably that, yeah.
You're docile. Okay.
I just like to make people smile. That's like my main goal in life is make the world smile.
And, we need more of that. There's not nearly enough of it. Okay, so and that kind of unintentionally flows into the next question. What do you think is society's biggest problem?
Society's biggest problem is everybody's pretentious assholes.
Yes.
90% of the world, I'm not going to say the world, 90% of the United States is so much about me. How can I get ahead? How can I do this? How can I do that? And it's not about, like, oh, man, how are you doing? Are you doing all right? Everything good in your life? Or how have you been? Like, everybody's so worried about telling other people what's going wrong in their life, and nobody's worried about sharing the good stuff. Nobody's worried about making the world smile anymore.
So it's all about, it's all selfishness. It's all selfishness.
Yeah.
What's your primary strength?
Like, just in general in life?
Yeah. What would you say is your biggest strength?
I don't give a shit.
What's your biggest weakness?
My biggest weakness is that I don't give a shit.
That's you know what though? That's an interesting approach. That's the whole point of doing this. What's the worst car you've ever owned?
The worst car I've ever owned, I had a 1997 Monte Carlo that we bought off of one of my mom's boyfriend's friends that, they said it was a steal. Had a rod knocking.
Yeah, they were stealing from you.
And yeah, it was a steal, them stealing my money.
Indeed.
And had a rod knocking, but that wasn't the worst part of it. The headlights would decide they didn't want to work randomly. It had like a short. And I just dropped Brittany off, my wife, from homecoming, a 17-year-old kid, and she lives in the middle of fucking nowhere. Like, you guys probably understand that.
Gee, thanks.
Being out there, yeah. I mean, hey, West Virginia has stereotypes.
We have some rural places, we do, but we're not in one right now.
There are stereotypes or truths.
In some places.
Truths.
But yeah, she lives in the middle of nowhere. And I'm leaving, and now subsequently, this story is the reason that there's a bridge on her mom's road named Justin Bridge.
Oh, gosh.
I was driving my Monte Carlo, just dropped her off from homecoming. It's pitch black out. There's no streetlights or anything because it's a rural road. And it's a little concrete bridge going over a creek. And the headlights decide to go out as a deer is running in front of me.
Oh, my God.
I hit this deer, not hard enough to kill it. Deer was okay, dickhead.
Oh, thank God.
And, yeah, and I missed the bridge. I drive off the side of the bridge and wind up on my side. That car was such a piece of shit.
Oh, Lord. If you could pick any day that you've ever had to be your personal Groundhog Day, the day you've got to live over and over and over again, what would it be?
That's a tough one. It would probably... I don't know, because so much, like, just that one day, I never get to proceed past that day.
Nope, just like the movie. And the movie he eventually did, but he had to live it so many times.
Gotcha. Then I would pick today.
Any particular reason?
Yeah, because if I go back, like if I go too far back, not all three of my kids are going to be in that day. If I go too far back, some of the memories that I have right now won't have existed, and I have some great memories. Just in the past couple of days, like last week, my daughter scored a couple of game-winning RBIs in her softball game. I'd love to remember that. I wouldn't want to forget that. She was so happy. And so I would pick my most current moment, especially if I could change how the day goes over the repeatance of it, or repentance, however the fuck, I don't know. The day repeating, however, I could change it as many times as it repeats.
Well, and that was the whole point of the movie. And I really like your answer on that. That's impressive, and that's a great way to think about that. I can't believe how old she's getting. I can't believe she's already playing softball.
I know. Little prick. She's 7.
Oh, I cannot believe how old she is now.
I know. She used to be like a little ankle biter running around my gym and taking pictures with me and stuff. And
well, I mean, we used to be going to where was it? We'd go to Eaton Park after fights, and we'd go there, and she was just kind of like tucked over in the corner and barely talking, and now she's doing all this, and that's incredible. Who has been? Yeah. Who's been the most unexpected major influence in your life? And I'm talking about outside of your immediate family. Yeah, I know Tim is almost expected because of how many years he spent. And once you went to that gym the first day, that was just going to be that way. And he turned into being a real father figure there. But who's the most unexpected major influence in your life? Somebody that's been a big influence that you never would have really seen coming.
I mean, as sappy as it sounds, and I'm not saying it to be sappy, but probably you, sir.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, because it wasn't expected at all.
I agree with that.
Up and I mean, and we've had so many like deep discussions, and I've came to you with life problems and just stuff that you didn't have to let me bounce off of you, and you've just always been there for me. And I mean, so probably you've helped me a lot more than you'll ever understand, and I appreciate it more than you'll ever understand. But yeah,
thank you.
That's probably my answer.
Thank you. That was completely unexpected. Thank you, man. You are. I've had the freedom to bring a lot of things to you over the years too, and I've done everything from talk about life issues in both directions with you to sending you excerpts of my writing, you sending me stuff that you've done creative writing on, and I've done some editing and stuff, and you've really, and I mean this, this is not something I say lightly, you have become family to me, and there are not many people who advance to that level. So to hear you say that means a great deal to me. Thank you very much. That means a lot.
Oh no, I mean it's the truth, man. No problem.
Favorite musical artist?
The Wood Brothers.
I thought they were a NASCAR team in the 1980s. Favorite song?
Oh, my favorite song, man. You know how I am with music.
Got to pick one. Give me something.
I'll go ahead and I'll pick a Wood Brothers song, "Postcards from Hell."
That I've never heard it, and now I'm afraid to listen to it.
It is a wonderful, wonderful song.
Favorite film?
Gotta go with Days of Thunder.
Whoa.
It's a pretty good movie.
Favorite author?
Brandon Sanderson.
Favorite book? Is it one of the Sanderson novels?
I mean, favorite book, it depends, like all-time favorite or like most influential.
Give me both.
Both. Most influential is a book called Redwall. I forget the name of the author, but he wrote like 20 or so of them. But it's my favorite book because I was an advanced reader in 6th grade. My 6th grade teacher brought that to me. She said, "I can tell you're getting bored with what we're reading in class. Try this." And it was my first view into fantasy, and I just loved it. And then my favorite all-time book is Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series.
Very cool. And is that the one that he's still doing? It's still going?
No.
He's ended it.
Well, he's got different variations of it going now, but the original Mistborn series is just a trilogy. But he's got spin-offs of it.
Very cool. If you could change the outcome of one event, what would it be? It can be a sporting event, something else that could have gone one way or another, and you can change it. What event would you change? Mine would be a sporting event.
Yeah, I mean, mine's a sporting event too. Whether or not you call NASCAR sporting, but I would roll back the day that Dale Earnhardt died, 2001 Daytona 500.
Mm-hmm. I remember that day very well.
Yeah, I would.
That changed everything.
That history. Yeah,
absolutely.
It did.
Absolutely, it did. Man.
I don't think NASCAR would be as pussified as it is now if it still had a guy like that around. I don't think he wouldn't have let everything that went down go down without a fight the way it has.
If you could somehow bridge the gap, and I'm no NASCAR expert, my uncle loved NASCAR, but if you could somehow bridge the gap between putting in the safety mechanisms inside the cars that they have, but still maintain all the competition things they had up to that point, NASCAR wouldn't be in the trouble that it's in right now. Because, I mean, they're on the verge of selling it from the family that's owned it for 5 or 6 decades. I am probably opening up a can of worms that is going to terrify me personally and then is going to make Steve incredibly happy. What is a conspiracy theory that you believe?
That I believe?
Yes.
9/11 was an inside job.
There you go.
When we do our conspiracy theory episode, you are so Skyping in on that one because we're going to discuss that. And we are going to do an entire episode dedicated to conspiracy theories.
Fun.
What is an ability what's an ability or a skill that you don't have but you wish you did?
Like that has to be realistic. Like it can't be like flying or anything.
No, you can do. Well, that will come in a later question. But
okay.
Like I know you can play the guitar, but if somebody couldn't play the guitar, they'd say, I wish I could play the guitar, or I wish I could paint, or something along those lines. A real world skill.
I wish that I was fluid in 3 other languages.
Okay.
Fluent. I said fluid like an idiot.
You said fluid. You sure did. I heard you do it. So did everyone who's listening.
I said it. Edit that out.
Why? That's not going to make anybody laugh. And you said you wanted to make people laugh. But we've gotten to a point where
smile.
We've gotten to a point where speaking so many other languages it's beyond being an extra. It's becoming a point where it's a necessity now because you can't just Google Translate everything. It doesn't work that way, especially with so many different dialects in real time situations. But I think technology will help us more and more with that as we go on. What do you fear? What do you fear?
What do I fear? I mean, it's super cliche, but I feared like something happening and me not being able to see my kids or something happening to my kids.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. It shows you where your priorities are.
I got to say wife too. She's probably going to listen to this.
Probably so. Hi, Brittany. And while we're at it, hi, Stephanie. Okay. She listens to all of them too. All right. Now we're back to the question you kind of referenced before. If you could only pick one superpower, what would it be?
I mean, invincibility would be super sweet though. Probably super speed.
That'd be all right.
Well, hold on. If I pick super speed, would I have invincibility as well, or am I going to tear myself apart running at Mach 3?
Well, you would think that if you have super speed, you'll have the physics to maintain it and deal with it. Otherwise, you'd run fast once and die. Yeah,
super speed then.
That's fair. All right. Who's the most famous person you've ever met?
Oh, I've met a lot of famous people. Mostly boxing, though.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Roy Jones.
Roy's up there. I've met Roy, and I've met Buster Douglas, too. And there's not many people more famous than Buster.
I've met Buster a bunch. I go up to his gym and spar.
He's a cool dude.
I spar with Mike Glasscock's up there all the time. He's super relaxed, like in a gym setting when he's not in like a personal appearance setting. He's a funny dude altogether.
This is dangerous. Who's the celebrity you most want to meet?
Say I most want to meet or most want to eat?
Meet.
Those are two different. Okay.
No, they're probably not two different answers knowing you, but okay. Who's the one you most want to meet?
They're two. One's a girl, one's a guy. The celebrity that I most want to meet, I would love to meet Timothy Oliphant.
Okay. Since she's now a member of the royal family, who has replaced Meghan Markle on your freebie 5 list?
I mean, why does she have to go away?
Well, she married into the British royal family. That's got to be a DQ.
I'm American.
Yeah, I know, and we kicked the crap out of them in 1776 to get away from them.
Gotcha. I mean, if technically she has to disappear and go away, I don't know. That's probably Felicity Smoke from Arrow.
Wow. All right. What's a realistic item on your bucket list?
A realistic item? I don't know how realistic it is, but to me, like, I know the proper people that it could possibly happen one day, but I would love to spar with a world heavyweight champion. Don't care which one it is, but I would love to spar with one of them.
I'll set you up with John Ruiz. Would you rather be blind or deaf?
Deaf.
Even as much of a music guy as you are, you'd rather be deaf.
I would rather be deaf because
I agree with you.
I rely on my sight a lot, and I mean, I could learn sign language, so I could still communicate. I could learn how to read lips. I mean, I could probably still even play music. I wouldn't be able to enjoy it as much. Yeah, I mean, that would be a giant downfall. But to never see my kids smile again, and I mean, also to never hear them laugh again, that would suck too. But to never see them smile, never see the joy in their eyes again, I would just no.
Cochlear implants, they make them now. So if you are deaf, you can hear.
That's true.
What? Then yeah, boom, right there. Loophole, I win.
Aha.
That's good lawyering. Would you rather go back to age 5 with everything that you know now, or know everything now that your future self will learn?
Age 5.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Would you rather be insanely rich and live 400 years ago, or be poor and live today?
Insanely rich 400 years ago.
Would you rather be telekinetic or have the ability to read minds?
Oh, man. What are the limits on my telekineticity?
I don't know. You're telekinetic. You can do that kind of stuff, or you can read minds. Take your pick.
I would be telekinetic.
Okay. DC or Marvel?
Man, fuck you guys.
Right back at you, Slick.
Yeah, probably Marvel.
Would you rather live without music or TV?
TV.
Would you rather have your life remote with a rewind button or a mute button?
I gotta go rewind.
What's your favorite word?
My favorite word is probably fuck.
What's your least favorite word?
Probably fuck. I mean, because my kids repeat it back to me now.
That I don't doubt. All right, one last question. Okay. What do you believe is your primary mission in life?
To make people smile. I mean, I'm a goofy motherfucker. That's obviously what I was put down here for. Is just to make people have a good time, to forget about their worries for a little bit.
Hey, there are a lot worse ways to spend your life, and I'll tell you what, we need a lot more people like you out there because we got a lot of negativity in the world, and all that's doing is dragging people down to a level where none of us need to be. Justin, thanks for letting us put you on the spot, my friend.
Oh, appreciate it.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap this segment up, and we'll be back to close the show right after this on episode 11 of Apex Live. We'll be right back. Final moments of episode 11 of Apex Live. I want to say thank you again to Justin Novaria joining us for our first On the Spot segment. By far our longest episode to date, but I think one of our most interesting. And Steve, I really liked the way that segment worked out. I thought that was fun.
It was organic. It didn't seem forced or anything. It was it's just learning more about somebody you already know.
We got to learn a lot. I think that anyone who's listening now gets to feel, like we talked about last time, like it's more of not necessarily an interactive experience, but a more personal experience, because it's not just, okay, here's a person, here's a voice, here's the issue, here's the response. It's about them. And I think everyone at some point in their life deserves a spotlight. Their story deserves to be heard no matter what it is. And when you can sit back and have some questions thrown at you and you can talk about them, you can learn something about yourself. The people you're talking to can learn about you and maybe learn some things about themselves. And then any untold number of people who may pick up on it may get to learn something along the way too. So I thought that was fun. It was enjoyable to do, and we'll certainly have more of those coming up. Stay tuned here in the near future. We'll be doing episode 12, hopefully next week. We're going to bring in another guest at some point, and we'll talk about everything that's going on. Hopefully my family situation doesn't completely implode, and hopefully in the next few days, no one that we know will be dead. Steve, any final thoughts on everything that we accomplished tonight from the first half or the second half?
It's definitely a longer episode, but I think, overall it went pretty good. We have my child here. He passed out. He was being really good all evening, and we didn't really notice anything out of him, so it was pretty cool, except for maybe like a couple Funyuns being snatched on. But
well, we had one of your children, but by far the most vocal of the three whenever it comes to interjecting into situations.
And he destroyed a container of distilled water that I have with the Funyun friggin' is disgusting.
Well, it was a gallon of distilled, fresh, wonderful, nice tasting water that, thanks to Funyun backwash, is now Funyun water. And if you've ever tasted Funyuns, I'd say if you really just closed your eyes and concentrated, you could still taste the first Funyun that you ever had.
Funyuns are good.
They're good in their place, and their place is not in a gallon jug of distilled water.
No, it's bad.
Oh, good grief. But, what do you expect whenever you start inserting X factors into everything you do?
That's true.
Not a lot of closing material tonight. I think you've listened to enough. Downloading, streaming, whenever and however you're listening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Until next time, remember, betrayal never comes from your enemies. Watch your six. We'll talk to you soon. I'm Brad. That's Steve. This has been Apex Live. Good night, America. Wherever you are.